Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
What is up, everybody? You are watching / listening to the Command Zone podcast. I'm today one of your hosts, Jimmy Wong.
And I'm back, co-hosting another one. I'm Rachel Weeks from the Commander Sphere fame. I'm also on the CAG.
Yeah, the CAG. Does it being called the CAG kind of like make it like less illustrious? Because like Commander Advisory Group has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, right.
CAG is kind of like CAG.
It does. It's not like maybe the CAG.
Yeah, it's true. I think the hard C too at the front.
It's just
tough. Okay, we're going out of our minds because we are done here. Finally, we have reached the end of the line for Dominaria United. You only had to hop in for like a couple of these, but it's a lot, right?
Well, this is my fourth.
Yeah. And there's more.
And there was more of them? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
So much.
So today we are doing the monocolored and the uncommon commanders, as well as some of the monocolored commanders we missed from the box toppers, so that we could all lump into one nice place. We'll be going alphabetically. However, we're not covering all of the uncommon commanders, and we're even not covering a couple of the rare ones because they're just not good, and they're not great for a commander, and they may fit into a slot in the deck, but they're not good enough, I think, to spend time to talk about it being a commander. So we still have, I think, 17 things to talk about
so
today.
Many. We're going to have to crank through these.
So channelfireball.com/command is the place to go if you want to pick up any Magic products, single, sealed, you name it, they got it. And you're shopping from local game stores around the country. These are stores that are certified as well as trusted. And also, they're local to a lot of awesome peoples, which means that you are actually supporting a store that players will go to and play at. And you're going to get the cards you need at the quality you want at a great price. So check out channelfireball.com/command or just enter promo code command at checkout, and you're going to be well on your way to building a great deck or whatever you're trying to do, draft, you name it. Also, once you get those cards, put them into an Ultra Pro sleeve or product. Go to ultrapro.com/command. They have a great store there. They're always having deals. Any single national holiday that we have here in the United States, there's probably going to be a deal. They got Father's Day deals, Labor Day deals, you name it. You can pick up some amazing product for really cheap prices. And the great thing is it's all Ultra Pro, so it's all great quality. It's what Josh and I have been trusting for a long, long time to protect our cards. So if you just head on over ultrapro.com/command or pick up Ultra Pro product at your local retailer, wherever you want, you're supporting the show either way. And of course, the direct way to support the show is directly at patreon.com/command-zone. We love our patrons. We shout one of them out every single week. So this week's episode is dedicated to Keon Warren. Keon, you rock. Okay, let's get down to business to defeat the set reviews.
Let's get into it. We are doing these in alphabetical order. The first one on the list is Balmor, Battle Mage Captain.
Pretty cool, dude.
For blue and a red.
Or gal, sorry.
Balmor is a legendary bird wizard for blue and a red. It has flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. She is a 1/3.
Okay, all creatures you control, +1/+0. And the most important word there, I think, is trample.
Trample. So they get half prowess plus trample.
Half prowess, I like that.
Which is pretty good. I really like flyers in this deck.
Yes.
And I think blue and red is well suited to make flying tokens. Of course, Talrand Sky Summoner is a favorite instance and sorcery flying token maker.
Yep, you get drakes, cute little drakes. Someone out there has a fun Drake altar of the musician. Murmuring Mystic was a limited all-star and actually does a lot of work in Commander as well, which is the same thing, instant or sorcery, but you're making 1/1 blue birds. Yeah, there's a lot of flyers in blue-red. This is definitely a well-known archetype. So you just want to make a lot of tokens and a lot of small things that go wide, and then all of a sudden when you have 5 creatures, they get +3/+0 swinging. That's a lot of damage.
Yeah, getting maximum value out of that effect. The more creatures you have, the more buff you get from your commander. So going as wide as possible is going to be huge.
Yeah, and it feels like you want to be very specific with using instants and sorceries where you can to make those tokens. For sure. So a card you put down here, which I think is really good, in fact, I played it on the Next Returns recently, is Stolen by the Fae.
It's so good. It's a sorcery that's X blue. It says return target creature with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. You create X 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying.
Yeah,
so you
that's
bounce
good.
something to hand and immediately produce a huge board of flyers.
Yeah, and this scales really well late in the game. Sometimes just that small tempo move to someone when they've spent their whole turn setting up and they just need that one piece or creature out and they're waiting to swing with it or whatever. Bouncing that could be big game. And not only that, retribution from those types of effects can be swift, but not when you have 6 1/1s to block for you.
Another sneaky flyer I actually really like in this deck is Mod the Nexus.
Oh,
This is the little infect flyer.
that's a good call.
Buffing up the power on Mod Nexus is really scary. And after a board wipe, it's sort of safe and tucked away in your lands, and you can pull it out for the next wave of attacks. And, you only have to cast a couple of spells and hit with Mod Nexus maybe once or twice to take a player out of the game.
I like that a lot. Mod the Nexus dodges a board wipe, like you said. You can pay 1 into it. It becomes a little 1/1 flying infecty creature. And then after your turn's done, it turns back to a land. So you would trigger this in the beginning of your turn, cast some instant sorceries. I could definitely see this being a 2-shot for someone, hitting them for 5 and then for another 5. And that person's game is over. Mm-hmm. Which is a little sad, but also very necessary. We're all trying to win the game here.
we're playing aggro.
Yeah.
For a deck like this, you want to keep the spells cheap because you really want to string them together to get a huge attack in.
Yeah.
And often you want these to cantrip.
Yeah, so cantrips, again, if you don't know, they mean a card that will draw you a replacement card as a part of the effect. Usually just says draw a card on the bottom. But blue and red, wow, we've got a lot. If you watch the Torwalkie episode of Game Nights, sorry, just the Torwalkie. It's the episode where Josh plays Torwalkie. He's constantly going through his deck and chaining stuff together because they draw him a card and they're really cheap. They're just 1 mana.
Yeah.
So lots of options here.
One that I really like is Leap. It's an instant for a single blue. It says target creature gains flying until end of turn, draw a card. So you give a little bit of evasion, cast a spell, pump up your whole board, and you don't even lose a card for your trouble.
Yeah, and it's going to trigger your commander's ability as well. I really like Leap too, and I liked all these cards, right? Opt, Leap, Consider, because if it's turn 1, you have a hand that has, let's say, 2 lands and a couple of these. You're okay just to cast this on someone's mana dork. Give them flying. Doesn't matter. You're going to draw that card just to get through your deck to make sure you hit land drops and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So they almost act. They're not. Take it from me. They're not lands, but they almost act like land getters or just hand smoothers. We call them smoothers in other episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
One card that I really like is Fist of Flame. This has won me probably 4 or 5 commander games just straight up. So it's 1 red for an instant. It says draw a card. Until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn.
Yeah,
so
this is a great finisher, especially if you're stringing together a number of these 1-drop cantrip spells.
Yeah.
Like if you go consider into if you go consider into Fist of Flame on your turn, you've drawn 3 cards this turn.
Yeah.
You can... It's a very big attack, and it draws an additional card.
Yeah, and you're, again, splitting all that +1/+0 triggers across all of your creatures, and one of them is going to get really big and double trample, which is, we all know, is better than singular trample.
Yeah. Can't even block. Nothing.
I want to see more people play Frantic Search. I think this card, anytime you can untap lands, so this is 2 in the blue for an instant, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. It does kind of require that you build some graveyard recursion or graveyard effects into your deck to make it really optimized. But untapping those 3 lands, especially when you're short on a color and you're trying to cast a spell that costs 1 blue like 3 times, Frantic Search is a way that you can get there, I think, by really figuring out, okay, I'm going to draw some cards here, discard some stuff, set up my hand, and then untap some other lands that maybe produce both colors mana for you to sort of smooth it all out.
Yeah, I mean, Frantic Search also synergizes really well with bounce lands and lands that tap for more than 1 mana.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it goes from being a little bit of a looting spell to also a ramp spell, or a what's the word? It makes more mana.
Accelerate. Oh, yeah, I guess it.
Oh my goodness.
We can just make up a new name.
Yeah.
I like that.
I just can't even, it's a spell that makes mana. This one, what is that?
A ritual. It's a
ritual for, my goodness.
Turns out the ritual to remember the word ritual is forgetting the word ritual and then doing that exact ritual. So we've got Mana Geyser, Seething Song, High Tide, which I think more decks can just play, by the way. If you have, especially if you're a 2-color deck, High Tide is very good because every time you tap a island for mana, you get an additional blue. And with Frantic Search, combo. This next category is called Bang for Your Buck. And this is actually how I built my Jeskai deck recently, but I really like that you included one of my favorite goblins of all time.
The best. It's Zada Hedron Grinder. I love her in the 99 of spells deck, especially when you're going wide with all of these little cantrips.
Yep.
Zada says when you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada, copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures.
Yeah. So you got a card like Leap, which gives a creature flying, and it says target creature gains flying, draw a card. If you target Zada with that and you have 5 1/1s on the board, you get to copy that spell 5 times, draw 5 cards off of one. That's like better than Ancestral Vision. That's better than a lot of things.
It's so fun.
It's very good. Mirrorwing Dragon does a very similar thing. And if you're playing red and white, then you've got Feather, the Redeemed, has kind of a similar thing too. It's like target me and something good will happen. But Zada and Mirrorwing Dragon are the ones that exploded across your board.
Yeah, and this commander really wants to be super efficient with its spells. They really want to, I think Balmor wants you to cast them all in one turn. So Zada adding some extra value out of just one spell so you can save some other spells back in your hand or reload is actually really helpful.
Yeah. If you see a Spell Slinger deck and Zada comes out and they're about to make more than just 2 or 3 creatures,
removal spell.
Yeah, you should get rid of Zada because it will become a insurmountable thing to get around. Harmonic Prodigy is great in this deck. It's 1 in a red for a 1/3 a human wizard, and it says if an ability of a shaman or another wizard you control triggers, that ability triggers a second or an additional time. So this is very strong. Obviously, now all your +1/+0s become +2/0. You can see where this goes.
Yeah, and Harmonic Prodigy itself has prowess, which isn't often relevant, but is very good in this deck. It can really buff up the power.
Yeah, it's hard to block it too.
Turn Harmonic Prodigy into a beater.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Harmonic Prodigy with prowess and double triggers from the commander, for every instant or sorcery you cast, it's going to get +3. +2. That's
a very big wizard. I think this card goes in a lot of decks. I'm running Harmonic Prodigy in like 3 decks right now.
Yeah, it turns out there's a lot of shaman and wizards in Magic. This next card, Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy, is one that I realized I probably should play more of. It's a very sneaky little creature. It's 2 in the blue for a 1/3. Human wizard. Also can be your commander, by the way. You can choose a background for it. But it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, you may cast up to 1 target card of the other type from your graveyard. If a spell cast from your graveyard this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So you cast an instant, look in your graveyard, see a sorcery, cast it.
Yeah, I think it works really well in this deck because a lot of the instants that you're going to use to pump your board, you'll have a lot of those kind of instants, but you'll also have sorceries that make tokens, I think.
Yeah.
So you can flash back some of those like spells that just make goblins or something like that.
Even a card like, I think, Expedite. No, Expedite's an instant. But like Warlord's Fury, creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn, draw a card. It's a sorcery.
It's great.
But it's exactly the kind of effect you want, and you're not going to cut it because it's a sorcery. You're just happy to play that. And then an instant thanks to Gale. Good job, Gale.
I do really like Crook the Thumbless in this deck because a lot of these spells you don't care if they resolve. You just want to get the trigger off of Balmor.
That's a good point.
So if you have Crook on board and Balmor and you cast a leap and you lose the flip, you still get the cast trigger for Balmor and will pump your whole team. And then you get to cast leap again and trigger it again without even spending another card.
Yeah, and you may get it back that time too.
Yeah. And if you double it, great. You just draw 2 cards and make 2 things fly.
Yeah, so Krark, again, when you cast spells, you do one or the other. Instants or sorceries, you either kind of counter the soft spell and put it back to your hand, or you just double it. So that seems like the value's pretty good here, yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of sort of what direction we've taken this here. Another thing you could do is play one of my new favorite cards. It's Ironicus's Vile Duplication. 3 in the blue for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except the token that's flying and isn't legendary if that creature is legendary. So it turns any creature into a flyer as a copy, but it also gives you 2 commanders.
Yeah, it doubles up, and it's an instant or sorcery to trigger Balmor. So if you have Balmor on board, you cast Ironicus at Vile Duplication, you have a second Balmor. Now every spell gives all of your creatures +2/+0, and you've already cast one this time.
That's why we call this category Balmor.
Yeah.
Because you get more Balmors.
Balmor every day.
Balmor every day. Ball out.
There's a new card that is great in this deck that I definitely want to mention because we talked about it as an Orvar card, but it's actually really good in this deck. It's Vesuvan Duplimancy. For 3 and a blue, it's an enchantment. When you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or a creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except it's not legendary.
Woo-hoo.
So you use some of these targeted little cantrip spells like Expedite or Leap that we've talked about before. You can target your commander and make a copy of it.
Yikes.
For free?
That's pretty good.
It's very powerful in this deck. And then all of your Balmors are triggering each other, and you've got a real mess on your hands.
Well, not to mention, you could also copy your Zada as well, because that is something you're going to want to target, and then you get 2 Zadas.
Whoa.
And then you, well, I guess it's not going to double, but you're going to get a lot of stuff, basically, which seems pretty good here. And I think these types of decks often lead to storm builds. So if you want to storm off, here are the blue-red staples. We are going to talk about these a couple of times this episode. So you got Birgi, God of Storytelling, Baral, Chief of Compliance, Runaway Steamkin, Mizzix of the Is Magnus, and like Stormkiln Artists. These are all ways to get mana back or make things cost less. And they will allow you to have that kind of turn where you are now casting 15, 16 spells, pumping up your army and one-shotting people.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. And then there's also just winning through damage that's not combat damage. If you're just a Spell Slinger deck, having 1 Electrostatic Field or 1 Thermal Alchemist or Gutter Snipe can be enough to also close out the game, because sometimes you have to swing 3 creatures at 1 player, 2 other players are still a little bit left alive, so you'll need these kinds of spells that deal damage to each opponent whenever you cast instants or sorceries.
A lot of redundancy in that category.
Lots of redundancy.
This next one is super fun. I love him. Baru Wormspeaker.
Baru Wormspeaker. And this is a pretty simple commander, so we're not going to spend as much time on it. This is 2 green for a 3/3 human druid. And worms you control get +2/+2 and have trample. That's worms with a U, by the way, not the kind you find in the ground. Well, I guess you find these ones in the ground too.
They're just bigger.
Yeah, a little bit bigger.
They're like underground rather than in the ground.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. And then Baru has an activated ability for 7 and a green. You can tap and create a 4/4 green worm creature token. And this ability costs X less to cast or to activate, where X is the greatest power among worms you control. So pretty cool stuff. Obviously, tapping Baru to do this means that you can't just pump out a bunch of 4/4s. By the way, those 4/4s are 6/6s with trample because of Baru.
Pretty good.
But there's probably a world where you make, even if you pay full price for this the first time, when you do it, you're going to create a 6/6 worm green creature token. And now this ability costs 1 and a green to do the next time you want to do it.
That's pretty sweet. It's worms in a box.
It is.
Also, you don't need very big worms to reduce that activation all the way down. Because he gives that +2/+2, you only need a worm that's a 5/5 to make this just cost green to cast.
Yeah, and there's lots of worms in the history of Magic. Mono green is a little tough because you want to get like white or red in there, like Armada worm or whatever. So I think Baru's a little limited, and because you have to tap him, maybe if you did build this deck, you could use Seeker of Skybreak to untap him or Patriarch's Seal to untap him, and find other ways to use the ability multiple times, because I think that's how you're going to get through.
Sereth the Viper's Fang is a great option for this deck. It is a legendary creature for 2 green, so 3/4. It says other tapped creatures you control have Death Touch, and other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. 1 tap, untap another target creature or land you control.
Ooh, so good with trample.
Really good with trample.
Yeah.
Really good with a tapping commander. There's a lot of synergy with Sereth, and it feels like a must-have in a Baru deck.
Yeah, there's a really old enchantment called Nature's Chosen, which is just 1 green, and you can pay 0 to untap target enchanted creature, but you can only do it once a turn. But that's still pretty good for just 1 green man to get an extra activation, and you don't have to pay anything for it, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then there's Thornbite Staff for all you Kiki-Jiki players.
Pretty cool.
I think, though, Baru goes in a Changeling deck. Because all your changes getting +2/+2 and trample, that's how you win games with a creature-based deck.
It's a very cheap overrun, too. Baru's only 4 mana? Is it 5?
Yeah, it's 4 mana.
4 mana for a +2/+2 and a trample on a permanent effect on changelings is really powerful.
Yeah, very good. So there's like Morit of the Frost that's green-blue, and it's a changeling. And then there's also Morphon the Boundless, which is just build whatever deck you want. It's got all the colors. So yeah, I like Baru a lot. I think it's pretty simple, just mono green version. So you're probably going to want to find him somewhere in the 99. Maybe they'll make a really good worm commander at some point.
I mean, it definitely goes in Grothama decks.
Yeah, Grothama, I think, likes Baru the most.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. This one's a little scary.
She is scary.
Actually, it's not that scary. We were talking about this earlier.
I mean, this is a very powerful card, I think. It's Braid's Arisen Nightmare. For 1 black, it's a legendary nightmare. She's a 3/3. It says at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life, and you draw a card.
Okay, so just quick rules how this works. At your end step, so you'll play probably Braids that turn, you may sacrifice, so you don't have to, and it's pretty much anything, artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, everyone else around the table goes around and they go, well, I could sacrifice. If you sacrifice a creature, they'd be like, I'll sacrifice this creature. Or if they say no, you draw a card and they lose 2 life. So you could potentially play Braids, go to your end step, sack something, and no one else wants to do it, and draw 3 cards and make everyone lose 2 life.
Lose 2 life each? That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Something notable about Braids is you can just power her out with a Dark Ritual on turn 1 and immediately have 3 more cards.
Yeah, that's right. That's a really good point, because no one's going to... Well, you have to have something like a land or something to sacrifice.
Yeah, you have to have a... Well, yeah, that's true. You could sacrifice your land. But still, you draw 3 cards. Who needs lands?
Well, also, I would say Braids being 3 mana is good, because at the early game, no one wants to sack their only creature.
Yeah.
And that can be really brutal for certain decks, too. So you're probably going to draw more cards than I think you'd expect, because it does take other players back, but it takes yourself back as well, and that's what we're going to talk about. So this first category is called Make Some Junk.
Yeah, some stuff to throw in the trash. Tokens.
Tokens, a very good one.
A great one for this deck is Jadar, Ghoul Caller of Nephalia. For 1 and a black, this is a 1/1 human wizard. At the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed.
Ooh. So this is dueling end step triggers here. You can stack it so that Jadar's happens first. You make a token, then Braids, you sack that token. Get it out of here. It can't even block.
Yeah, you don't need it. And then you can either draw a card if your opponents don't do anything, or they'll sacrifice a creature that matters to them, unlike a Decayed zombie.
I don't think they would, though. Lots of great options in black, those. Ophiomancer makes a snake on each upkeep. You got Bitter Blossom. You have Dreadhorde Invasion, which are kind of similar. So there's lots of ways to give yourself that fuel. And not to mention, Dreadhorde Invasion, Bitter Blossom are both 2-drops. So that means you can get these down and then get that upkeep trigger to make something before you play Braids and then sack it.
That's a great curve.
Bye-bye. Another thing to talk about, obviously, is the types of creatures enchantments that you could sacrifice, because I think that is going to be something that is people do not want. If I play an enchantment and you make me edict it, I'm not going to be very happy.
Or I'm just not going to do it, and you can have 3 cards.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. So there's a lot of cards in Black's history, actually, that are like, hey, this is an enchantment that gives you something good, but then it punishes you because it's too good what this front side does. And Braid gets around that by getting rid of the card before it can hurt you too bad.
Yeah, so Treacherous Blessing is great in this deck. It's 2 and a black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards.
Ooh, 3 mana, draw 3.
Pretty good. And it says, when you cast a spell, lose 1 life. And when it becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So you don't even have to worry about the last 2 lines of text. It's just 2 and a black, draw 3 cards, and then an enchantment to sacrifice, and then maybe draw 3 more?
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah, Demonic Lore is very similar. Again, it's a 3-mana enchantment to draw 3 cards, and then it says at the beginning of your end step, you lose 2 life for each card you had in your hand. Well. Braids is going to get rid of that so it doesn't happen more than once. There's also cards that want to get sacrificed, like Omen of the Dead, I think is really good. You can flash it in, you return a creature card to your hand, and then if you need to sack it, totally fine. You can sack it to Braids to force some pressure on other players. Or later on, you can just pay 2 in the black to sack it and you scry 2. So it has additional value. Either it's 2 Braids or you can hold it on for something later. Mm-hmm. Demonic Pact is sort of a very well-known one. It's 2 black for an enchantment. And it has 4 things. You choose them going down the list, and the last one is you lose the game. So all the other ones are really good. Target opponent discards 2 cards, draw 2 cards, or deal 4 damage to a creature and you gain 4 life. That last one sucks, so you want to get rid of it before then. Braids lets you do that.
Yeah. One I really like that's a little underplayed just generally is Sarcomancy. It's an enchantment for a single black that when it enters the battlefield, it makes a 2/2 zombie creature token. And then it has another line of text, but you're going to sacrifice this enchantment, so who cares?
Yeah, that's nice.
So if you have Braids in play, it makes two things for you to sacrifice to Braids later, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that kind of value, it seems small when it happens. Same with like Jadar, but it really builds up over time and makes a big difference. Rules question. If I sacrifice an enchantment and no one else has an enchantment, I'm not automatically drawing cards, right? They have to have the choice to say no.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think
if they don't have one, you just draw.
Yeah,
for each
so
opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. So I think enchantments are particularly powerful because it's not necessarily something. It's definitely not something you want to sacrifice, but it's also not necessarily something that everybody has
early on. So Sarcomancy looks even better now. I think with that in mind. There's artifacts as well. Moving on from enchantments, Ichor Wellspring wants to go to the graveyard. You want to sack it. Pitiless Plunderer. Love this card. It itself is not an artifact, but every time a creature dies that you control, you get a little treasure token. Not to mention you can be sacking the creatures to give you that with Pitiless Plunderer out. Yeah. It's a party.
Another one I really like is Noble's Purse because it looks a little bit like an arcane signet that you sort of sacrifice later. When it enters the battlefield, it enters with 3 coin counters on it. You tap it and remove a coin counter from Noble's Purse. You create a treasure token. So it's a little bit of junk. But then once you run out of coin counters on the thing, just throw it in the trash. It's dead.
The Noble's Purse has been emptied.
Yeah. So,
it does enter the battlefield tapped, but I see a lot of value there. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of junk, which I think is cute.
Yeah, I like this card from, I think it's Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It's Shambling Ghast, 1 black for a zombie, 1/1. When it dies, you choose one. You either give a creature -1/-1, or you create a treasure token. So there are sequences where you sack this early on, no one else has a creature, you draw 3 cards, they all lose 2 life each, and you make a treasure token on top of that. Seems pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Solemn Simulacrum, if you're playing mono black, this one loves both entering and leaving the battlefield.
And he's easy to bring back.
So this next segment you called Catch 22. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I think you're giving your opponents a choice, right? And every time you give your opponents a choice, you want to make sure both of the options suck.
Right.
So
it's not like one's good and one's bad because they'll take the good one each time. You want them to both be different levels of bad for them.
Right. So I think having ways to punish them no matter what is happening, and making sure that you're both options are bad. Just giving you a card and losing 2 life feels worse. So I like things that tax their life total repeatedly throughout the game, where it's like you're forcing them to think about sacrificing things because you're lowering their life total so much. So I liked cards like Polluted Bonds. It says whenever a land comes into play under an opponent's control, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life.
Oh my gosh, this is going to gain you so much life.
It's going to gain you so much life. It's a 5-mana enchantment, so it is expensive, but that late in the game, you really want to just start putting pressure on their life total because then you're like, ugh, I either lose 2 life and I give you a card, I guess I have to sacrifice something, and you're just generating more and more value out of Braids each time.
It's pretty grindy, huh? The way you just sort of slowly push them in to the dirt. Bloodchief Ascension. I love this card in this deck. Right. It's so good. Yeah. Black for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. And whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, that player may lose 2 life if you choose, and then you gain 2 life. So your commander instantly does this. Yep. If at least one person doesn't sacrifice something, and then chip damage. Loss of 2 life throughout the course of a game. That's going to happen a lot. I think Bloodchief Ascension comes online by turn 5 at the latest.
Oh, for sure. And once
absolute latest.
This card puts so much pressure on your life total.
Yeah. If you mill, if you discard, if you do anything.
Yeah.
You lose 2 life.
You cast an instant or sorcery.
Oh, gosh.
From anywhere.
Yeah.
From the stack.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's a very powerful card, and it belongs in a fairly famous 2-card combo with Mindcrank. So if you're looking for an easy combo kill, Bloodchief Ascension fits naturally into the deck all on its own, and Mindcrank will close it out for you.
Very nice. We also have the new Shieldred the Apocalypse. It says whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life, and you gain life when you draw cards. But this is, again, similar to Polluted Bonds. Everyone's going to be drawing cards in the game, as is everyone's going to be playing some lands, and it's going to start hurting.
you're gonna start to feel it. And now every time you draw a card off of you're now also gaining 2.
Yeah.
So it's just widening the gap between you and your opponents.
You are pulling ahead very quickly. I like that a lot. Okay, I'm digging Braids so far. I didn't really like the original Braids. It was also banned for a period of time.
It's still banned.
Yeah.
Or OG braids? Yeah.
Yeah, OG braids. Yeah. To me, braids for some reason is legal because it's not that crazy.
No, it's mostly banned because you could force everybody into sacrificing their land every single turn and lock everyone out of the game.
Yeah. Those
especially with Jeweled Lotus. No, thank you.
Oh, I forgot that card exists for a hot second there.
Thank you.
I was reminded by you. You're having things die as well. Pitiless Plunderer, that comes right back into the discussion. Morbid Opportunist, you can draw a bunch of cards from this card. And then Revel in Riches, Midnight Reaper, Lily on the Dreadhorde General. These are all things that reward you with cards or treasures when creatures are dying. And you're making their creatures die. Your creatures are going to die. There's going to be a lot of death happening because of Braids. Good job.
Yeah.
Very much a nightmare.
It is a bit of a nightmare, but it's definitely a grindy nightmare, which I think is how Braids likes it.
Yeah, I guess the last category, if you really want to get your head wrapped around some very intense board states, is playing Dictate of Erebos and Butcher Malik here, and waiting to have one thing die and watching the cascading events that happen around the table. But that seems like just another way to like really push it in and iron it in that you are killing them.
They honestly seem a little bit win more just because it's so much sacrificing already.
Yeah, I don't know if Butcher needs to be in there, but Dictate feels pretty strong.
I mean, it always is.
Okay, let's move on to our next card here. It is a mono white commander. It is Danitha, Benalia's Hope.
Yeah.
4 and a white for a 4/4 human knight. First strike, vigilance, and lifelink. When Danitha enters the battlefield, you may put an aura or equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield attached to Danitha.
So we're cheating both mana cost and equip cost in the case of equipment.
And not just from your hand, from your graveyard as well. On an ETB, it doesn't say when Danitha is cast from anywhere, so you can flicker Danitha. There's a lot you can do here. So let's talk about some things that you'd want to stick on.
Yeah, just some cool
murder other people
big
with
stuff. Of course, Helm of the Host is really sick in Danitha.
Oh my gosh, every time you make a copy.
It enters, it equips for free, and then at the beginning of combat, you get a new Danitha to cheat a new terrifying equipment or aura into play.
Yikes. How about Eldrazi Conscription?
Oh, the biggest, the baddest.
An 8 mana enchantment aura, gives +10/+10. Trample, Annihilator 2. Swing with that once, it's game over for someone.
Pretty bad. This next one I think is very cool. It's Mantle of the Ancients. It's a 3 white aura. It says enchant creature you control.
That's how that works. Yeah.
That's the aura thing. When Mantle of the Ancients enters the battlefield, return any number of target aura or equipment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to enchanted creature.
Whoa!
Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it.
Jeez, this is Build-A-Bear right here.
Right? It's like Bruna. It's like a DIY Bruna.
Yeah, so this normally costs 3 white with Danitha just entering the battlefield. Even late game, it's going to bring everything back strapped onto that one creature. It's going to have all sorts of protection, maybe haste, maybe some indestructibleness. That's going to be very hard to deal with.
Yeah, late game, Mantle of the Ancients is really going to recreate a very scary threat all at once, especially if you're leaning into auras and, it's easy to get blown out.
Yep. There's also cards like Hammer of Nazan does the instant equip thing, so you want to be having those guys around. I do like having some reconfigure cards in here. So this is from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Cloudseer Kirin, 2 and a white for an artifact creature. It's a 3/2 with flying. But it says equipped creature has flying and you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. And for 5 mana, you're able to either reconfigure this creature onto your commander, or I believe this will just equip naturally because it's an equip cost, pretty much. Well, it's not the equip cost. Danitha just has an aura and equipment
comes in
attached to it.
Yeah. I think Cloudsteel Kirin, normally that reconfigure cost at 5 feels very, very expensive.
Yeah.
But just cheating this thing into play and automatically snapping it on, your commander becomes a what's the angel? A
the platinum angel.
Platinum angel.
We knew that.
Immediately. It's great. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, that's nice. I was thinking about the living weapons options that we have. So like Cauldron Complete, Nettle Cyst. It's interesting because it still works in a way that you will get actually the Cauldron Complete or a Nettle Cyst as a creature after you play. So let's say you play Dantha, and then you take Cauldron Complete, and it goes equipped onto Dantha. So that happens, and then there's another trigger from Cauldron Complete, which is when it enters the battlefield, it has a living weapon. So when this equipment enters the battlefield, you create a 0/0 black Phyrexian Germ creature token, then attach this to it. So it'll come out, Dantha will come out, it'll slap an equipment on her, and then the Germ will get taken, and then the equipment will slide over. So you do get to have a full-on Batterskull or Nettle Cyst or whatever it is, but you don't have it attached to your commander. So it's...
Which honestly is better.
Yeah?
Because then you can blink Dantha and put another thing into play.
Ah, very good call. I like that. Because when you blink Dantha, the stuff falls off of her, but when she comes back in, she could, again, throw another Germ thing out, or that time come in with an equipment on her.
Yeah, so I think this next category is going to be really neat in this deck because of that problem where you really want to reuse that ETB that Dantha has, but auras and equipments like to stay attached.
Right.
So we want to have ways in the deck to move things off of Dantha onto another creature, perhaps, so you can reuse Dantha's ETB and cheat another thing into play.
Yeah, move it. So Arden, Intrepid Archaeologist, says at the beginning of a combat on your turn, you can attach any number of auras and equipment you control to target permanent or player. So Dantha has like a Eldrazi Conscription on it, but you want it to be on another creature, maybe Arden. It can just slide right over, then you can bounce, do whatever you want with that commander to get that thing again. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, Halvar is also really good at this. Halvar, God of Battle, says creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike.
Oh, man.
Pretty good. And then at the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or equipment attached to a creature you control to target creature you control. So you can slip that enchantment you just cheated into play over onto Halvar, give him double strike, and then blink Dantha for some more value.
That's pretty good. I
pretty
like
cool.
that a lot. Brass Squire, colorless 3 mana artifact creature. You can tap, attach target equipment you control to target creature you control. So let's say the equipment does fall off on Dantha. You just want something else on her. Now you have this Cauldron Complete sitting there that's just got a huge equip cost or an Argentum armor. Now you can tap the Brass Squire, instantly attach stuff. You can do it in combat. You can do it on someone else's turn. You can do some really sneaky stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. This next category I called it Knives Out.
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, because white is very good at tutoring equipment, it turns out.
Yeah, and I think this deck really wants to have big, expensive equipment to cheat into play. So you really want to make sure that you have it in your hand. I would run all of the equipment and aura tutors that you can get to make sure you're cheating in an Eldrazi Conscription or, a Cauldron Complete or something. So Open the Armory is the perfect tutor for this. It's a sorcery for 1 and a white that says search your library for an aura or equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Nice. Steel Shaper's Gift is a sorcery that allows you to tutor an equipment to your hand. Enlightened Tutor does artifacts or enchantments to the top of your deck. So there's a lot of good options here, I think.
Stoneforge Mystic is a perfect option in this deck. Gives you a little bit of redundancy for cheating and equipment into play. And also, if you're going the blink route with Dantha, Stoneforge Mystic is an excellent target. That's great. As well. I love that a lot. Stoneforge Mystic, very powerful card. Using it more than once in a deck like this. Even better, so double the fun. Ephemerate. This is one of my favorite instances. You can exile a creature control, then return to the battlefield under your owner's control immediately. And then it has rebound, so you can exile it as it resolves, and then you can cast it again at the beginning of your next upkeep. So it's just ways to, again, reuse your stuff. Instant speed also saves Dantha from a creature removal spell, so there's a lot of good things there. Same with, like, Flicker of Fate. Well, Flicker of Fate, I think, is extra special in this deck because it can also blink an enchantment. Thank you, Theros Block. So you can exile an aura that's attached to Dantha, and you can, when it re-enters, you get another chance to equip to enchant another creature. Oh, cool. So you can flicker a big thing if you want to blink Dantha with something else. Yeah, if you have a protection spell, something that gives it pro something, and someone's like, well, I'll target that other thing instead, Flicker of Fate can get you out of that situation in a really neat way. Notably, Flicker form is the perfect aura in this deck. Perfect. It is perfect. It's a 1 and a white for an aura. It has an activated ability that says 2 white, white, exile enchanted creature and all auras attached to it. At the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you do, return the other cards exiled this way to the battlefield under their owner's control attached to that creature.
Oh, so they stick around.
So you get around you have to move those auras around.
I see.
And you get to reuse Danitha's ETB without having the clunky auras or falling off.
I like that.
Moment.
Okay. Finally, we got Gift of Immortality. This is a pretty easy infinite combo with a sack outlet. Gift of Immortality says 2 and a white enchant creature. When enchanted creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. And then you return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step. So when the creature dies, Gift of Immortality goes to the graveyard with a delay trigger, but your creature that died with it on instantly comes back. So when that happens and it's Danitha, well, she can just grab that Gift of Immortality right back from the graveyard and slap it on her. And then if you have an Altar of Dementia or any of the altars that create mana, now you can do this loop where Danitha gets sacrificed for mill or mana, and then just keeps coming back. You do it over and over and over again.
Yep.
If you have a card like Blasting Station, that you can just ping everyone. So interesting things to do there.
Lot of things to do with infinite ETB and dice triggers.
I like Danitha.
Yeah, I think she's cool.
Yeah, very cool. Okie dokie, let's talk about our next card here. It is Elas Irkor, Sadistic Pilgrim. Poor pilgrims. Why are the pilgrims so sadistic these days? Aren't they supposed to be...
Maybe he's the most sadistic pilgrim.
Or just one of many. And it's like, that one, he's a sadistic pilgrim. This one, he's happy. That one's kind of...
They're like the 7 dwarfs. This is Sneezy Pilgrim.
And here's Sadistic Pilgrim. And he's just very different than the rest. He's got because he kind of looks like he has some eyeliner on.
Look.
Oh, is this a lady? Elas is a lady. I'm so bad at this.
I have no idea.
Because the cards are so far away from my face.
Yeah.
My vision is going.
So this is a very powerful uncommon commander.
Yeah, this is, I would say, of all the uncommon commanders I saw, maybe the most powerful.
Yeah, close to Torwaki for sure. It's definitely cheaper.
So it's white-black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Core Cleric, and she has Death Touch, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Love that. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. It's an aristocrat's creature.
Yeah, it's just everything you want in an aristocrat's commander. It's a little on the nose, to be honest.
Yeah, it is.
Notably,
sadistic.
Notably, it is a 2-mana Orzhov commander, which means Lurrus can be your companion.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, worth noting.
Yeah, so Elas is kind of a combination between the Soul Sisters, which gain you life for entering creatures entering the battlefield, and like Zulaport Cutthroat, which is the drain part of it. And so it's, I think at 2 mana, its efficiency is really why it's so this could be a competitive commander in some ways, if you can just figure that part out. But it seems very good to get this down turn 2, always have access to a Cutthroat type of card in your command zone. Seems pretty darn good. Any
infinite dice trigger can kill the table. And that is not necessarily a very difficult thing to do. We just displayed that with Danitha.
With Danitha, yeah. You can get there.
Yeah, so I think if you're playing Elas, be aware that your commander is extremely powerful and people will know exactly what you're doing from the outset.
Yeah, it's all on the card.
Yeah, so normally you have a little bit more time to develop a board and slowly grow cards, tokens with Bitter Blossom. But I think that token cards in this deck are going to need to be a little bit more explosive.
I see.
You're going to want instant boards.
To threaten 10 life drain instead of just 1 at a time over and over again.
Right, because it's in your command zone. People know you're going to be the problem. People know exactly what you're doing. So I think you're going to want to do it fast.
Okay.
So I really like instant spells like Call the Coppercoats. Choose any number of target opponents. Create X/1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures each of those opponents control, and it has Strive. So you can pick all of your opponents and immediately make 15 tokens depending on the board.
Yep.
Secure the Wastes is another good one. It's X and a white for an instant. It says put X/1/1 white warrior creature tokens onto the battlefield. Instant board state, instant threat with Elas, and if you have a sack outlet, even better.
Yeah, especially because you could sacrifice creatures like Elenda the Dusk Rose, which gives you X/1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is Elenda's power. And whenever creatures die, you get +1/+1 counters on Elenda. So you go this whole thing where you secure the waste for 10, and then you have Elenda out. You sack 10 of those creatures. Elenda goes to an 11/11. Then you sack Elenda, get 11 more creatures, sack all of those. That's just a full-on 21-point life gain. To each opponent, by the way.
Yep.
I feel like LS could have been balanced a little bit for multiplayer by just saying target opponent.
Yeah, it's very pushed. In my
sadistic.
opinion. It is sadistic. Wizards, this was truly sadistic.
Truly sadistic.
So you're gonna, because you have sort of all your payoffs in the command zone, I think you have more room for sack outlets.
Yeah.
To make sure that you have a sack outlet on board when you need one. So I would really lean heavily into the sacrifice outlets, like you know, the typical altars that we always mention. Viscera Seer is great and cheap. Carrion Feeder is the same.
Yep.
One I really like for this deck is Fanatical Devotion.
Great card.
It is a free sacrifice outlet. It is a white enchantment for 2 and a white. It's a free sacrifice outlet that says regenerate target creature.
Yeah, sack a creature, regenerate a creature.
Yeah, so you can save your value pieces like Blood Artist, like Ellis, like
Zulaport.
Zulaport Cutthroat. You can save those little guys, and all of your tokens can die at the same time in a board wipe or something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
I think it's really good in this deck.
Yeah. Spawning Pit's really interesting too. You can sack a creature, put a charge counter on it, and then you pay 1 to remove 2 charge counters, and you make another token, a 2/2.
Yeah.
So a great way to get a dice trigger, and just again, you're recycling. Actually, maybe it's not so sadistic. It's teaching you how to get all the value out of something. It's like when you're...
use the whole buffalo.
Yeah, the buffalo. Yeah, I guess so. I was thinking of squeezing like a lemon. But
You've never heard using the whole buffalo? That's
No.
a phrase.
Is this like back in dysentery days?
Yeah, you can't throw out part of the buffalo. Like, use it. Use his hooves. Use
That's
his,
cool.
Use
Wear
his
them
ears.
horns.
Yeah.
Woo!
All right.
All right. We got really not excited, and then we got less excited. Okay, Better Off Dead. So I think some redundancy is going to be very good here. Like we talked about earlier, there's already tons of different ways to get this effect. Meat Hook Massacre is the biggest one that came out recently, but we've got Blood Artist, Corpse Knight, Suture Priest. Love this card. You played it recently on an episode of
cool.
Extra Turns that will be coming out soon. And so this way, I think, one, you have to be a little good at the math, because some creatures will say target opponent loses a life. Some of them will say each opponent loses a life. So you need to be very specific. Everyone's going to lose 2 life, and I'm going to gain 2. And then I'm going to choose for the Blood Artist trigger. You're going to lose 3 more, and I'll, right? If you're not good at that part of playing this deck, it's going to be a little difficult actually to play this in the multiplayer setting, because you don't, the way you lose the game is forgetting to tell people they lose life.
Right. You got to remember your triggers. Aristocrat decks are all about triggers. And to make the math even harder, I actually really like this card in the deck. It's Vizkopa Guild Mage for 1 and a black. It is a human wizard as a 2/2. It has 2 activated abilities. One of them gives a creature lifelink, which doesn't matter as much in this deck. The other one says 1 white-black. Whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life.
Okay.
So it makes Blood Artists drain for 2. It makes your commander drain for 2. Or whenever creatures enter, it also drains. And you can set up a lot of crazy loops with Vizkopa Guild Mage.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it's really good in this deck.
Yeah, another new card. People were very sad about this, by the way. It's the Weatherlight Completed.
Oh, no.
It's like that Lego set you've been waiting to build for a long time, and you finally completed it, and it's evil.
And oh no!
Oh no! It's
covered in ichor.
Ichor. Icky. So it's a 2-mana legendary artifact vehicle. 2 mana being big, actually, because you just want it to be out early. And then if it does have 4 or more Phyresis counters on it, it becomes a Phyrexian creature. And so it becomes a vehicle creature at 4 counters. And the way it gets counters is whenever creature you control dies, you put a Phyresis counter on Weatherlight. And then you draw a card if it has 7 or more Phyresis counters on it. Otherwise, you scry 1. So this is kind of like Viscera Seer for a while, and then it just starts drawing you cards.
It's crazy. It gets so powerful, and then just on accident, it's a 2-mana 5/5 flyer.
Yeah,
that just hits like a boat. In fact,
yeah. Well, hits like the Weatherlight,
like a bus,
swings like I'm trying to think. There's the Muhammad Ali stings like a bee, stings like the Weatherlight because it's got a pointy.
Stings like the Weatherlight. Hits like a boat. Bus. Another great one to include, of course, it has a dice trigger on it and is in Orzhov. You got to include Teysa Karlov to double up those dice triggers.
Yeah, Teysa Karlov seems like one of the MVPs of the deck
For sure.
because it just powers up like 6 of the cards we just talked about.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. Pretty good.
Supercharger.
Yeah, definitely supercharging it. Okay, life is a resource. You're going to want to make sure the life that you're gaining turns into some even bigger gains, right? It's like you're working out. You just want to get as big as possible. Karlov of the Ghost Council, white, black. Whenever you gain life, you put 2+1/+1 counters on Karlov. So this thing gets big fast. Sick. Karlov is pretty big too. Yeah, he's kind of a hunky guy.
He's a ghost. He can be as big as he wants.
Yeah, he weighs the exact same. It's kind of crazy. And then, even better, white and black, you remove 6/1/1 counters from Karlov, exile target creature. So this... You've seen all the cards we've talked about. You just need to have 3 tokens out, sack them 3 times. You get those 6 counters, and now you have the ability to just swords on a stick.
Start picking off some creatures. Another one that's very brutal in life gain decks, it's Witch of the Moors. For 3 black. This is a human warlock with Death Touch. It says at the beginning of your end step, if you've gained life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature.
Ugh.
And you return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
You only gain life once?
Yeah.
And then
so
you do all
sack
that?
1 token on each turn, and they have to sacrifice a creature every single turn. It is backbreaking in decks like
the
this.
creatures, you don't even sacrifice tokens. You can just sack a real creature and bring
get
it back.
right back. It's very good.
Yeah, that I don't look forward to seeing that at the other end of the table.
Not my favorite
Yeah,
card.
definitely not. Okay, I like Attended Healer. This is a new card as well. It's a 2/3. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white cat creature token.
Sack a cat.
Each turn.
Make a cat.
Or
sack a cat, make a cat.
Sack a cat, make a cat. Drain life, gain life. Drain life, gain life.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good. Crested Sunmare does a similar thing, except for this time you're sacrificing 5/5 horses.
Yeah, the horses are pretty sweet.
They're pretty big.
Yeah, and you have to gain life and against each end step. So these are all, by the way, 5 mana, 4 mana. So I think if you're building this deck, you got to choose a few of them. You don't get to play all of them because you'll make your deck pretty clunky. But you got to choose: are you going to go the Regal Bloodlord route where you're making black bat creature tokens, or are you going the Crested Sunmare route where you're making 5/5 horsies?
Yeah. And all of these, I think the life gain theme option is a less powerful version of this deck. I think if you're starting to include like life gain triggers and these 5 mana, 6 mana spells, you're trying to slow things down a little bit.
Right.
But this deck certainly has a lot of combo potential. It's, like it said, it's very easy to make infinite dice triggers.
Yeah.
It's as easy as a Gravecrawler combo with any with a Phyrexian Altar.
Yep.
Gravecrawler, Phyrexian Altar, and any zombie.
Yeah,
which
classic combination.
I think you can make a zombie token in this deck. Easy to get infinite drains in a deck like this. So expect your opponents to understand that your deck is going to be powerful.
Well, maybe one of those things where you just don't play your commander until your board is set up and you know. Because otherwise, people are going to instantly be like, ow, why am I losing life? Oh, it's that thing. I got to kill it. Yeah, I got to kill it with fire.
Kill it.
It's sadistic.
Yeah.
All right. This next one we'll spend very little time on, but we don't want to mention it because it's a rare and it is a cute little...
I love this card.
Yeah, it's Emperor Mihail II. Is Prof around? Hey, Prof. I bet you like this card. So this is 1 blue for a 3/3 Merfolk Noble. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast Merfolk spells from the top of your library, and whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token. So for Ristic studying basically all of your spells for 1 more, you get to make a 1/1 as well, and that seems very good for any Merfolk decks.
For sure. I have a Kumena Tyrant of Baraska deck, which is going to slam Emperor Mihail into the 99. Huge amount of draw power, and it gives you free extra bodies to tap for drawing cards.
Yeah, and I think Wizards has been making cards like this a lot more recently. So Vizier of the Menagerie, Augur of Autumn, even...
there's the Changeling one that lets you play stuff off the top of your library.
So there's
Realm Walker.
Realm Walker, yeah. So I think they're looking to make more and more of this effect. Also, Emperor Mihail is good in the Changeling deck. Because you get to make merfolks and you also get to cast them or changelings off the top of your library. So
pretty good.
Very, very good. Yeah. Moving very quickly on to the next one. It is not blue, not black, not white, not red. It's Greensleeves.
Greensleeves.
Morrow Sorcerer. It's Mark Rosewater. I don't know what he's doing and who made him that outfit, but it's great.
But he looks amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely worth like a gift card somewhere.
This is an elemental for 3 green. It has star power. It says protection from planeswalkers and from wizards. Greensleeves' Mirror Sorcerer power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. So a chunky boy.
Yeah.
And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 3/3 green badger creature token.
Badger. You ever watch that video?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm old, too.
I guess I kind of set myself up for that response. It wasn't going to be like, oh, yes, I do also love vintage internet memes.
Yeah. No, it's like...
It's like a fine wine, badger. You should look it up if you haven't seen it. Great video.
If you weren't in early internet, do you understand that video at all?
It's like the hamster dance.
Yeah. Right? Which also is so old.
Or those awful, you remember when you're like, happy birthday, here's a video of you with your head on these disembodied puppet things dancing for 3 minutes. That was like another early internet thing.
It was, yeah. God, we loved an Evite.
Yeah, everyone was just happy to make some content, I think, back then. So we're not going to talk about Greensleeves that much because it's kind of like Rampaging Baloths, the Badger version. Mm-hmm. And I think 3/3s are pretty comparable to 4/4s. Now, Rampaging Baloths costs 1 extra mana. You get a 4/4. Mm-hmm. Greensleeves is 1 less mana, but Greensleeves itself is also potentially like a 12/12.
Yeah, huge. And has protection from wizards, which is actually very relevant against some decks.
Yeah, maybe that's an inside joke that Morrow has protection from Wizards of the Coast. I thought it was like protection from... I doubt it, by the way. I don't think so, but maybe.
Kind of neat.
Just maybe.
Yeah, so it's a mono green landfall deck. You're going to want to put as many lands onto the battlefield as possible and do it again.
And then do it again. Yeah, it's not actually landfall. It just says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, which is, it's just landfall.
Yeah.
Ashaya, Soul of the Wild is a great creature because it turns all your creatures into land. So
non-token creatures. So it doesn't go infinite with the Badgers.
Yeah, they very specifically, because it would have gone infinite with Rampaging Baloths as well, yeah.
And any number, you have Scoot Swarm, gross.
Okay, so we have, I believe, 8 creatures left of the uncommon monocolored and some of the box topper commanders to come. But before we get there, let's take a quick break, get a glass of water, watch a cool ad, and we'll be right back after we hear from these mid-roll sponsors.
Welcome, slumbering fools, to the dream world, where I, Ashiok Nightmare Muse, can give you any nightmare I wish. And my favorite, you're speaking in front of a class and realize you're in your underwear. The shame. Of course, if you're wearing MeUndies, that nightmare may be a dream come true, especially with MeUndies' latest Halloween collection. I warn you, they are scary soft. So don't miss their limited edition prints like Jack Attack or Spell It Out. Available in undies, socks, bralettes, and more. And everything is made with the frighteningly comfortable micromodal fabric. Plus, if you slept on your Halloween shopping and need a last-minute costume, you can transform into a spooky skeleton with their Lazy Bones loungewear set. Match with your boo or an animal familiar in sizes from extra small to 4XL to make it your softest Halloween ever.
The scary soft hype is real, everyone. If you're not impressed with MeUndies, your first pair is on us. That's a promise. To get 20% off your first order and free standard shipping on US orders, go to MeUndies.com/command. That's MeUndies.com/command. Crap, I'm late for draft night. I guess I'll just grab takeout. It's the fastest, cheapest thing. That's a Factor Fiction!
Factor Fiction!
How long have you been out there? Longer than it takes to prepare a meal from Factor, that's for sure. You see, Factor delivers nutritious, chef-crafted meals that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So takeout being the fastest, cheapest option is now a pure fiction. Factor is perfect for the on-the-go lifestyle. With no shopping, cooking, or cleaning, you'll have even more time to do the things you love. Every meal is dietitian approved, and with 30+ choices each week, including vegetarian and protein plus options, you can eat healthy without ever getting bored. Oh man, that sounds great. I really wish I had a Parmesan crusted chicken with Italian veggies. Wow, this is delicious. Wait, where were you hiding it? You don't want to know. And that's a Factor fact. Head to go.factor75.com/command130 and use code command130 to get $130 off across 6 boxes. That's code command130 at go.factor75.com/command130 for $130 off.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy.
Hey, it's me, Tamio. I've been going through some unexpected changes lately. I moved back home, had to make new friends. Jinkataxis turned me into a Phyrexian. This isn't quite how I saw my life going, and honestly, it's been pretty stressful. But thanks to BetterHelp, I've been working through that stress with my therapist, all from the comfort of my own home, which I guess is new Phyrexia now? Ugh. We all have those moments when our life changes directions or just feels incomplete, but you don't have to get completed to start feeling whole again. Therapy is a great tool to talk things through with someone who will never judge, take sides, or corrupt your homeworld. And BetterHelp makes it easy. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. Give it a try and see if online therapy can help lower your stress.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Command Zone listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/commandzone. That's BETTERHELP.com/commandzone. Welcome back, everyone. We are talking about the monocolored and uncommon, and some of them monocolored box topper commanders from Dominaria United. Are you confused yet? Chump, figure it out. We're clearly going a little loopy at the end of this, but we have a bunch of creatures to talk about, including some very exciting ones. So this first one up is Moira Herborg Hunt, not Hunt. 2 in the black for a 3/2 Spirit Wizard Menace. Whenever Moira deals combat damage to a player, return to the battlefield target creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn.
Yeah.
This turn.
So it's sort of tricky to make Moira work, but I really like her with creatures that kill themselves.
Yeah, they're already dying anyway. They're on their way.
They're gonna die. So evoke creatures like Shriekmaw are very powerful in a deck like this.
Yep.
I included some exploit creatures like Fel Stinger. This is a relatively new one. For 2 and a black, it's 3/2 with Death Touch and exploit. And when it exploits a creature, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life.
Ooh.
So
untap main phase Moira's out, can attack this turn.
Yes. You play Fel Stinger, exploit itself. So you sacrifice Fel Stinger and you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Then you attack with Moira, deal combat damage, bring your Fel Stinger back, and you can either exploit it itself again to draw 2 more cards or exploit a different creature that's a little worse.
Yeah,
and
4
still draw
cards,
those 2 cards.
4 cards, 4 life for 3 mana with Moira. That seems very good.
Seems pretty good to me.
And Shriekmaw, by the way, is really good because you evoke it from 1 in the black, and it hits the battlefield, kills a non-black, non-artifact creature, goes to the graveyard, you hit someone with Moira, comes back. This time it's not evoked. So it just sticks around. You have a new 3/2 fear that kills another creature.
Yeah, pretty good.
Plaguecrafter, any of these edict effects that
are going to be brutal in this deck.
Backbreaking, especially because Moira is already, presuming that Moira can hit someone, it means she has Menace and they don't have 2 blockers that they want to put in front of it. Yeah. So a double Plaguecrafter means Moira is going to keep smacking.
You play Plaguecrafter, sacked itself, tack, bring it back, sack more. Ugh.
Tack, bring it back and sack
Bring it back and sack it.
Tack, back, sack, everybody.
That's a dance.
That's the way we do it.
I think Burnish Shard is actually great in this deck. Normally, it feels really expensive, but in mono black, getting 2 lands back and then having the opportunity to get 2 more lands back feels very, very powerful and puts you a long way ahead on resources.
Yeah, I do like that quite a bit. Obviously, in terms of exploit creatures, Sidisi Undead Vizier is basically demonic tutor on a stick. So doing this twice in a turn because of Moira, again, we're just assuming that Moira can hit through, is very good. I like that quite a lot.
Yeah.
2 cards to your hand. Oh, so good.
A very gross card in this deck is Dauthi Voidwalker. Gross in any deck, extra gross if you can sacrifice it and keep bringing it back.
Yeah, because the void counter, so Dauthi Voidwalker, every time a card goes to the graveyard for an opponent, it gets exiled with a void counter on it, and then you can tap Dauthi, sacrifice it, and you can play one of those cards without paying its mana cost, by the way. But those cards that are in exile don't just go away, they still have void counters on them. So you could sack Dauthi, play one of those cards, get it back with Moira, and those cards are still applicable for Dauthi to get back.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Will Strider is a card that I talk about a lot. It's, I think, one of the best commander creatures printed in a very long time.
It's incredible.
2 in the black for a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 0/1 white goat creature token, and that's it, everybody. 2 for 1.
Yeah, free goat.
You can sack another creature to scry 1, so this is Viscera without being able to sack itself. And it also has escape, so you can pay 5 mana to exile 4 other cards from your graveyard and then cast it again, and it comes in as a 5/4, with 2+ and counters.
Mm-hmm. And you have another free goat.
Yeah, another goat.
Definitely really strong in this deck. You're going to have a lot of stuff in your graveyard.
And you need to fill the graveyard, too, with sack outlets so that you can choose when you go to combat, I need to bring this back with Moira. It's not an exploit creature that's going to be the same turn twice. twice or whatever.
Another one I really like in this deck are cards that sack other creatures for value.
Right.
Because it's still on a creature body, so you can sacrifice it, and they have strong ETBs. So Disciple of Bolas, I think, is perfect in this deck.
Oh, yeah.
When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice another creature, you gain X life, and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power.
Yeah.
So
Pretty good.
you sack another creature and then recur it, like if you sack Gonti or something like that. And then Gonti goes to the graveyard and you get to use another ETB for Gonti after you hit with Moira.
Yep, you got Gonti's. Also, God Eternal Bantu, I think, is the mono black one that lets you sack a bunch of stuff too. Yeah, so I think you want to have stuff that is going to come in and die, like your evoke creatures, but also ones like Disciple that give you so much value.
I think an all-star in this deck is Cavalier of Night. For 2 black, it's a 4/5 with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. Whew. And when it dies, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Holy moly.
So this is doing everything you want.
Yeah.
When it enters, you sacrifice another creature, and you can hit with Moira, bringing that creature back, and then you can sack Cavalier of Night later and get more value, return at 3-drop back to the battlefield. You are looping creatures like crazy.
Yeah, you're going nuts. That actually is really good.
Cool.
I also really like Ayara, First of Locthwain. You're in the mono black deck, so it's perfect. It's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield or another black creature, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. So that's just incidentally going to be happening a lot with Moira's trigger. And you can tap Ayara to sack another black creature to draw a card. So you're very clean. You're just getting it all there.
I think it's worth mentioning Feign the Broker as well.
Yeah, this is a new card, right?
Feign, it's from Strixhaven.
Oh, yeah, it's super new. It was like yesterday I saw it for the first time.
Like 9 sets ago.
Look at me feigning ignorance. Get it?
Yeah. Feign is a sack outlet. He's got a ton of stuff going on. He's 2 and a black for a 3/3, and he says tap, sacrifice a creature, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature.
Okay.
Tap, remove a counter from a creature you control, make a treasure token. Tap, sacrifice an artifact, creating 2/1 white and black inkling creature tokens with flying, and 3 and a black, you can untap Feign.
Okay.
So the thing I like best about this is the sacrifice a creature, put 2+1 counters on a creature.
Yeah.
Because Moira is only a 3/2 with menace.
Oh, okay.
So being able to buff up her power and make sure that she's getting through while you're sacrificing a creature, I think is going to be really strong.
Yeah, there's cards like, it was like Volruk Battlehorns, I'm pulling this out of my head now, that make Menace unblockable pretty much. It says creature can't be blocked by
blocked.
2. Yeah. So there's stuff like that. But yeah, I think in general, if you don't have that, make Moira really big. And it's going to be hard for people to want to block it if it's going to kill 2 other best things.
Yeah, and if she is getting through, you want to get all of the value you can. So a card like Fire Shrieker is very cool.
Yeah.
This is an equipment that gives equip creature double strike. Brass Knuckles is another way to do it. There's not many ways to give creatures double strike in mono black, I'll tell you that. But Strionic Resonator also does a good impression of doubling a triggered ability.
Yeah, I wonder how many of these you actually run, because like Grappling Hook is good, but it costs 4 and the equip cost is 4.
Seems very expensive.
Yeah.
I think at most you run, like I would probably run Fire Shrieker and Strionic Resonator. But it's cool because it means that if you've sacrificed 2 creatures in a turn, you get 2 creatures back.
Yep, I like that quite a bit. And then I guess at this point we have to ask ourselves, how do you win the game?
Yeah, got to do something about
some payoffs
about
here.
The game.
Yeah, how do you get out of there?
You can't just dirtle all day.
But you can, but you don't want to.
An easy way to get out of this is Grey Merchant of Asphodel.
Yep, that's the winner.
You can sacrifice a creature, like you sacrifice Gary and you bring him back, and you sacrifice him again and you bring him back, and that'll be the game.
Yeah, you may be playing Animate Dead or Reanimate in your deck, and you could probably get Gary out like 3 times in a single turn.
Pretty good. If Grey Merchant of Asphodel or Kakusho, these kind of effects feel a little too efficient.
Yeah.
Something I really like in this deck is Vindictive Lich.
Oh, this card's a house.
It's so fun. It's 3 and a black. It's a 4/1. It says when Vindictive Lich dies, choose 1 or more. Each mode must target a different player. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. Target opponent discards 2 cards, and target opponent loses 5 life.
Yowza. So all 3 of those will happen, and you maybe get to do that twice.
Yeah, and starting to loop him more than once if you're reanimating and bringing him back to the battlefield and sacrificing him again. You can really take people out of the game with Vindictive. Plus, you're still swinging with a big Moira.
Yeah, that's right.
Hypothetical.
Moira is still coming in. Yeah, but I think any combination of these cards, once or twice, once is close to backbreaking, twice is really when you get into death saves pretty much with a lot of players, especially with Green Merchants of Asphodels. You can play Aristocrats. We've talked about Aristocrats a billion times. I guess one creature we can talk about that you highlighted is Abhorrent Overlord.
Oh, I love this card.
Yeah, so 5 black for a 6/6 demon. When it enters the battlefield, you put a number of 1/1 black harpy creature tokens with flying on the battlefield equal to your devotion to black. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So normally that's like, oh, downside, but in the Moira deck,
yeah.
upside.
So if you get Abhorrent Overlord onto the battlefield and you make all these harpies, and then the next turn you sacrifice it to its own trigger, attack with Moira, and bring it back and
Make
double your
more.
harpies.
Ooh-wee.
So if you want to play an Aristocrat build, you want that kind of effect. Like ETB make a lot of token effects, because I think just looping one Shriekmaw over and over again is going to be a very long game.
Yeah.
So you're going to want cards like Abhorrent Overlord or Sengir Autocrat, which makes 3 surf tokens when it enters the battlefield. Underworld Hermit makes a whole bunch of squirrels equal to your devotion to black. There's a number of ways to do this in black.
Yeah, and we just talked about a 7-drop, a 4-drop, and a 6-drop. Mono black of all of the mono colors, and green, I guess, really don't actually have a huge problem getting to those, because there are multiple ways in black to generate more mana. Phyrexian Tower is one card we didn't mention that gives you extra black mana, but you've got your rituals. You also just have your Cabal Coffers and your Herborg type things, and lots of different ways.
Altar.
Yeah, your altars, yeah. And then you're having a lot of creatures die. You're going to want to look for all of the suite of cards that let you draw cards from it. So we already talked about them already. Morbid Opportunist, Revel in Riches, Midnight Reaper, Liliana the Dreadhorde General. A suite of cards that care about the creature dying, and when they do, you get a card. You got to refill your hand. You got to find more things for Moira to stick into the bin to rip right back out.
Yeah.
She is the Herborg Haunt, after all.
This next one is from one of the commander decks. It is the Peregrine Dynamo. For 3, it is colorless, just 3. It is a 1/5 construct with haste, and it says 1 tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control from another legendary source that's not a commander. You may choose new targets for the copy. Cool.
Okay, cool.
A lot of words on it.
It's almost like they don't want this to be in your commander deck. Because, so you're copying a target activated or triggered ability.
Yep.
Tons of commanders have that.
Yep.
It has to be from another legendary source, but it can't be a commander.
No commanders.
Yeah.
It definitely takes a lot of work to get this card going. There's some very cool legendary activated and triggered abilities that you can copy. One of my favorites is Azor's Gateway.
Oh, yeah.
It's a legendary artifact for 2. It is 1 and tap, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand. If cards with 5 or more different converted mana costs are exiled with Azor's Gateway, you gain 5 life, untap Azor's Gateway, and transform it. The other side says it's a land, it's a legendary land, and it says tap, add X mana of any one color to your mana pool, where X is your life total.
Woo-wee.
So it's hard to flip, but boy, does it give you a payoff.
Yeah, it definitely does. Now, notably, you cannot double that with the Peregrine Dynamo. It is a mana ability.
Yes.
But yeah, you're looking for, again, legendary sources. So you're looking for lands, enchantments, artifacts. Thran Temporal Gateway. You can put historic permanent cards from your hand on the battlefield for 4 and then tapping it. Planar Bridge is something that would be very good with Peregrine Dynamo. You get 2 fetches out of that.
Pretty good. One I really like is Inventor's Fair.
Oh.
We don't often think about this being a legendary land. You can copy the mana ability. You could copy the gain 1 life ability if you really need it. But I like copying the 4 tap, sacrifice Inventor's Fair, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, only if you control 3 or more artifacts. So it's a tutor that you can get 2 artifacts out of for paying 4 mana and the price to copy.
And your commander is one of those artifacts.
Yeah.
Towards that 3 as well. There's also Mindslaver. So doubling this trigger up seems like that's how you make Josh Lee Quiet really like you. Yeah, so again, you'll get to enslave that person twice with Mindslaver for the
Well,
for
you
the
can
turn,
pick different
right?
copies, right?
You can, yeah.
Different
So
targets.
you control target
you control
player.
2 different players.
Yeah, so you could pass the turn and then you can Mindslaver to the next player and the next player and basically play 3 of the 4 turns, which is
gross.
pretty gross. Yeah, very, very, very
man.
gross.
This also copies triggered abilities. So, and there's a lot of cool ones, namely Finally, the Eldrazi Titans, all of the legendaries, pair of Ulamogs, pair of Kozileks, and the legal Emrakul.
By the way, this is a colorless deck, if you didn't know, so that's why.
Yes. So you can copy the cast triggered ability. You could copy I believe you can copy even the Annihilator triggered ability.
Yeah, that is a triggered ability when it attacks.
Yeah, so there's a lot that you can do with the Eldrazi in the deck. But one I really like is Umizawa's Jit.
Yeah.
So it says whenever equipped creature deals combat damage, you put 2 charge counters on it, and then you can remove a charge counter to do one of 3 things. You can buff it +2/+2, or you can give a target creature -1/-1, or you gain 2 life. So you could either double the triggered ability and put 4 counters on it, or you could double the activated ability and
+4/+4, or -2/-2, or gain 4 life.
So it's just a tidy little activation. Another good, little cheap one is Sword of the Animist is legendary as well.
That's
so you
right.
can copy the triggered ability on Sword of the Animist.
Yeah, and if you've noticed, especially in Dominaria, they are putting a legendary in front of a lot of cards these days. And, it doesn't make a huge difference for us in Commander because it's singleton, but it does because there are not a lot of Legendary Matters cards now, and they're all very, very fun.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're in a colorless deck, there are some cards that will really help you out. One of them is All Is Dust, which each player sacrifices all colored permanents they control. Seems pretty good in a deck where it doesn't touch anything of your board, but will probably annihilate a couple of them.
Yep.
Forsaken Monument, whenever you tap a permanent for colorless mana, you get an additional colorless mana. So all your lands turn into Soul Rings, pretty much. And then when you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life, and colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. So this is just like the max value engine for all colorless things. Like it quite a bit.
Hugely powerful in a deck like this.
Yeah.
The way that I'm interested in this deck is building a colorless Super Friends deck.
That's right, because Super Friends are legendary permanents and
with
are legendary
activation.
sources. Yeah, that's right.
So obviously there's some very powerful and beloved colorless planeswalkers. You have 2 Ugins, Ugin the Spirit Dragon, Ugin the Ineffable. You have 3 Karns that I think are good in this deck. The 4th Karn isn't great in Commander, but Karn Liberated is excellent.
Yep.
Karn Living Legacy, the new Karn, and Karn Scion of Urza are all great. I don't think we're going to read all the way through all of those.
No,
but
thank
look
you.
up the Karns and Ugins. They are very good.
Yeah, they are very good. You also have the Chain Veil. If you're going to go this route, it's colorless. It allows you to do your Planeswalker abilities again. And you can copy it more than once now, right? Because you have your commander and a thing like the Chain Veil out.
Yeah,
so you're going to get a lot.
If you copy the Chain Veil activation, you can do all of your Planeswalkers multiple times. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Something kind of cute that you can do in this deck. This is my kind of jank. You can use Luxie or Giada's Gift to turn one of your planeswalkers into a creature.
Okay.
So you have, let's say you have a Karn's Living Legacy. You give him a sword. Now he's a real boy. And if you control the Ozolith, and if that Karn leaves the battlefield, you put all of the loyalty counters onto it, and you can turn another planeswalker, like an Ugin or a Karn Liberated or something like that, into a creature and put all those loyalty counters
back onto it.
So you can supercharge your planeswalkers with, casual 4-card combo.
That's how you play Doubling Season.
Yeah, in colorless. I think it's fun.
You can also put a Helm of the Host on that Planeswalker when it's a creature.
And you can copy the triggered ability on the Helm of the Host.
Yeah, that's
pretty dumb.
That sounds pretty dumb. By the way, those creatures will not turn back into Planeswalkers. They'll just be weird, like, I'm Declappy, but I'm not real. They're kind of jacked up, you know?
So sick.
Everyone's looking at it like, oh, I am not a weapon.
He's so sick.
Okay, moving onwards, let's talk about Rona, Shieldred's Faithful. 1 blue, black for a 3/4 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 1 life. Sounds like a couple of cards we talked about already.
Yep.
You may cast Rona from your graveyard by discarding 2 cards in addition to paying its other costs. Okay. So this reminds me a bit of Professor Onyx. It has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like a smaller version of that.
Yeah, it also has hints of Torwaki. It's whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you can make your opponents lose life.
Hints of Torwaki.
Hints.
Sounds like
notes of Torwaki.
Yeah. Are we testing wine out now?
Yeah.
Rona doesn't work with copy spells. She doesn't gain you life, but this is kind of another Spellslinger deck, but now in blue and black. And there's a lot of support in these colors as well, obviously. Baral, Chief of Compliance, makes all of your instants and sorceries cost 1 less to cast. That's the kind of thing that makes this kind of deck super powered. You just need one effect like that, or Jace's Sanctum that does a similar thing, and then all of a sudden Primal Amulet, and now you're casting just spells over and over and over and over again, draining people.
And if you're casting that many spells, you need that efficiency that we talked about earlier with Balmor. Gale, Waterdeep, Prodigy, again, is excellent. Archmage Emeritus is always great in decks like this. This is a good one, I think, for Lear, Disciple of the Drowned, which we didn't mention before, but it's so good.
Very powerful. Yeah, it works great in that Balmor deck as well.
Yes. For 3 blue, this is a wizard that says spells can't be countered. So if you're doing a control-heavy build, maybe not Lear. Each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost.
Right.
So you can start using those cantrips multiple times and draining your opponents out for even more.
Yep, very good. There's also like Wavebreak Hippocamp, which is 2 in the blue for a 2/2. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, draw a card. And you're going to be, again, loading up with cantrips, small, 1-drop instants and all that stuff. You just go nuts. You go very nuts. Bolas's Citadel seems pretty good in this deck too.
Yeah.
Because you just need to get through your deck.
For
and
sure.
Having even one extra card to look at to flip that next one, see what it is. Don't like it, cycle a card, cantrip out of it, try again. And you can get into those crazy cycles where you're casting tons of cards off your library.
If you can get Bolas's Citadel into play, it feels like you are golden in a deck like this because there's going to be so many cheap spells to burn through.
Yeah.
Definitely you want other cheap spells that let you cast other spells like Dark Ritual, and then just a load up on the cantrips like, Cataxian Probe and Brainstorm. It's particularly good with Bolas's Citadel.
Oh, Brainstorm's great with Bolas's Citadel.
Yeah,
totally.
Serum Visions, all of these that scry or get cards out of your way. Frantic Search again. One that you couldn't run in the other one that I been liking a lot in my decks is Tainted Indulgence. This one's from New Capenna. It's blue-black. It says draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless there are 5 or more mana value cards in your graveyard. You'll probably be pitching a card because it feels like your curve will be very a lot of 1-drops. But drawing 2 and discarding 1 in instant speed chart of course seems good to me.
Yeah, and sometimes it will just be draw 2, keep both of them.
Yeah.
2 mana.
Yeah.
Redundancy Rona, again, you're in blue, so you have a lot of the ability to sort of copy the effect by either duplicating the commander herself with Spark Double or any of the Sakashimas, Ironicus is Vile Duplication, or you're just playing like your Professor Onyx is, so you just get more of that trigger, and you're just, I think, adding on to what you're already doing. It's not super impressive, I think, Rona, especially compared to sort of Balmor, and it feels a little more stuck in sort of one pattern here.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be the stormiest of the storms because you have to do it all with spells.
And you have black as well for the big finishers.
Yes, but there are some things that are going to help you close it out. So there's classic storm finishers like Aetherflux Reservoir.
Yep.
The Sentinel Tower, I think, is worth running in this. Is whenever an instant or sorcery spell is cast during your turn, Sentinel Tower deals damage to any target equal to 1 plus the number of instant and sorcery spells cast before that spell this turn.
Okay.
So it counts for a large number of spells and starts dealing damage. It is a 4-mana artifact, so it's a little expensive to get into play, but will definitely help close the game out.
Yeah, once you're on like instant sorcery 5 and 6, then you're just hitting people or things for 5 damage, 6 damage, 7 damage. That will close things out quickly. Hullbreaker Horror is insane. It's a 7-mana, 7/8 flash, can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, you choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand. So now your instants become like little Vensers.
Yeah.
And then return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand is the other option. So this is just super control-y, can just shut down the game at the end of a game.
Yeah, make sure you can close it out with those little pings from Rona.
Yep.
I wonder if this deck, because it's so devoted on draining life totals and so devoted to tiny little instants and sorceries, might be the first Tendrils of Agony commander deck
of all time.
Can we get there? Can we get there with Tendrils of Agony? I would love it.
So it's a storm card. You double it. You copy it for each other spell cast before this turn, including itself. And then target player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. So you need to have storm count a lot to kill everyone.
A lot. But
that's
maybe
why,
a value tendril.
Yeah. And that's why you have Aetherflux Reservoir to just dome someone out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Something that I thought was really interesting was the second ability on Rona, which allows you to cast her out of your graveyard by discarding cards. And people may get rid of Rona. Again, being able to storm off and kill everyone in one turn is the goal sometimes with decks like these. So people will want to kill your commander. And so you have a lot of ways to make the most out of the fact that you discard cards to do this.
That's cool.
Bag of Holding, Currency Converter are all, Containment Construct are all ways that say, hey, you're going to exile a card? No, let's do something else with it first. Discard the card, I mean. And there's also a lot of like Madness cards too. Big Game Hunter.
Especially in black, yeah.
Yeah, Necrogoyf, Call to the Netherworld. It seems like, if you're going to allow Ronan to go to the graveyard and use this ability, it's actually kind of cool because now you have a discard outlet in the graveyard.
Yeah, a free one.
So that gives you the ability to just sit there and be like, cool, I have these extra things I want to do with this. I'm going to discard cards. And it says you may cast by discarding 2 cards. So I think
you just leave her there.
you could just leave her there. Yeah.
And just have a free discard outlet in your graveyard. That's pretty cool.
I think that's how it works. I
believe so.
I believe so as well. And I will believe it. I'll take it to the grave with me.
This next one is tearing up a lot of constructed formats.
Yeah.
You know her, you love her. It's Shieldred the Apocalypse.
Yeah. Woo, woo, woo.
For 2 black, she is a Phyrexian Praetor. She's a 4/5 with Death Touch. It says whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life.
Okay. Mono black drawing cards matters.
Yeah, it's Nekusar in black.
It is, yeah. It's very powerful, 2 life per card. There are some decks, Josh, where if they just draw through this will kill themselves really quickly.
Gotta be careful.
I mean, we all saw Cataract Parasite do its thing on that last game nights, and this is kind of equivalent to it, right? 2 life per card that you're drawing.
Yeah.
So very powerful stuff. How do you make them draw some cards in mono black, though? Because that's what you're trying to do now, right? Force them to draw cards, and then you're going to just make them lose a ton of life.
So there's not a ton of wheels in mono black. Of course, there's Dark Deal, which has each player discard all the cards in his or her hand, then draws that many -1.
Yeah, but if someone only has 2 cards in their hand, they're not really getting super affected by it, right?
Not really going to do it. A card I like a lot in this in a deck like this is Elder Brain.
Yeah, new card.
New card. It says whenever Elder Brain attacks a player, exile all cards from that player's hand, and then they draw that many cards. You may play lands and cast spells from among them. Among the exiled cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you cast a spell this way, they may spend mana as though it was mana of any color to cast it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this gives you a little extra value because whatever's in their hand, now
you get to cast it. And it just makes them draw a fresh hand. Again, it doesn't force them to draw a ton of cards. So you're going to need some either big draw spells like Peer into the Abyss.
Yeah, 4 black,
perhaps?
black. Target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life. So that losing, KO. That should just instantly kill someone. It is 7 mana, but again, mono black, you have a lot of mana accelerators. You also have just like targeted card draw. So Damnable Pact, Eldritch Pact, you make a player draw X cards, and
often lose that much life.
Yeah. Twice that, 2 life per card, or you can obviously target yourself, but Eldritch Pact and Damnable Pact, they say on top of it, you lose X life. Yeah. So, sorry, I got you now.
Okay.
I'm bad.
Another crazy one in this deck is Tofarious Puzzle Box.
Here you go. So this is a colorless version to get everyone to wheel their hands, right?
Yes. So at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the card in their hand on the bottom of his or her library in any order, then draws that many cards, and then draws for turn?
Yep.
You draw and then wheel and then draw that many.
Yeah. So it's untap, upkeep, draw. So it's at the beginning of your draw step. So yeah. That's kind of crazy. That's going to be one, this really upsets plans, I think, more than anything else. If someone was waiting to remove your Shieldred or whatever, Tofarious Puzzle Box forces them to do something that turn.
Use it or lose
in their
it.
upkeep. And then they actually draw less cards too because they're using a card out of their hand. Tofarious Puzzle Box isn't going to draw that many on the way back out.
Yeah, this is probably a Font of Mythos deck like these decks often are. It is an artifact for 4 that says at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws 2 additional cards. So they're drawing 3 cards a turn, losing 6 life if Shieldred's on the battlefield.
Ooh. So maybe you do play Temple Bell, Howling Mine, Anvil of Begarden, just to make people draw more cards, including yourself, by the way. Now, you are using a card slot to do it, so you're a little bit behind in that regard, but this could be the thing where, again, if you're taking 6-8 damage per turn because of all these extra draw cards effects, you're drawing some incidentally more cards on your own. You play a Muldrift or whatever. You could find yourself at 20 life in like 2 turns.
Yeah.
Really easy to lose a lot of life from this kind of effect without realizing it. Especially if someone else casts a wheel.
Yeah, right. If you need a classic wheel, it is kind of an expensive card these days, but it's very powerful in this deck. It's a Memory Jar.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 5-mana artifact that says sacrifice Memory Jar. Each player exiles all cards from his or her hand face down and draws 7 cards. At the beginning of the next end step, each player discards his or her hand and returns his or her hand to each card that was exiled this way.
Yeah, so you put your hand away, draw a fresh 7, those cards go away, and then you get your original hand back.
Yeah, so you get those 7 draws, and we'll drain them for 14 life.
14 life, but if you combo it with like Underworld Dreams, whenever an opponent draws a card, Underworld Dreams deals 1 damage to that player, or Fate Unraveler, or Obnixilis the Hate Twisted, or Viseling, those kinds of cards, now you're doing more damage, 3 damage, 4 damage, whatever it is, that will just close out the game really quickly. It also will make everyone not like you. Because drawing cards should be a fun, joyous affair.
And you're hurting them for it.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, isn't it?
This is another card that Blood Chief Ascension and Mindcrank go into.
Holy crap,
very
Blood Chief
naturally.
Ascension, it automatically triggers each turn because drawing a card makes them lose 2 life with Shieldred's ability.
Yeah. And Mindcrank is also naturally quite good in the deck because it's like all on its own. It's milling them. So maybe you can kill people by drawing them out of their deck.
Yeah. And don't forget, you are also gaining life when you draw the cards. So even cards like, let's say like Damnable Pact, where it says target player draws X cards and loses X life. You're not losing X life. You'll lose the life, but you're going to gain 2 life per card you draw. So you actually end up life positive on a lot of those things. And turns out Black, again, has lots of ways to take use of that life and, weaponize it. Veto, Throne of the Dusk Rose, Sanguine Bond. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So that's just another thing on top to add on to that pressure to just slowly crush them.
Yeah.
Bring them to the apocalypse.
And your life total is going to be high, which means you get to throw in these cards that take advantage of a high life total by having you pay life.
Yeah.
Like Defiler of Flesh is the new one for 2 black. It's a Phyrexian horror. You may... as an additional cost to cast black permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost black less to cast if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of black mana you pay. And then it also gives something menace, but I don't think you're as worried about that.
Yeah.
It just reduces the casting cost of all of your permanent spells in this deck. Which
it gives it's kind of like giving it Phyrexian mana, basically, right?
Yeah. Obviously, Keurig is another great way to...
Yes, Keurig, very good here. Necrologia, 3 black, instant, cast it only during your end step. As an additional cost, you cast it, pay X life, draw X cards. You can just pay 39 life, should you have 40, and then you're going to gain 2 life per card. You draw 39 cards.
78 life?
I believe so.
Seems okay.
Seems pretty good.
Seems pretty good. Necropotence will also do it, the OG.
Yeah, Necropotence, obviously very good here as well. Stinging Study, 4 in the black, draw X cards, you lose X life, where X is the mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or on the command zone. Doesn't matter. You draw 4 cards, you're going to lose 4, gain 8. So you're up 4 life total there.
Another kind of cute card in this deck is Pain's Reward. This is a sorcery for 2 in a black. You bid any amount of life in turn order. Each player may top the high bid. The bidding ends if the high bid stands. The high bidder loses life equal to the high bid and draws 4 cards.
Ooh, interesting.
So you create a little bidding war with your life total, and we know we're already attacking our opponent's life total. So
right. And everyone wants to draw those 4 cards because they could win if they win the life bid.
But if they do, they lose 8 more life if Shieldred's on the board.
Man, and I guess if you're drawing 4 cards, that is 8 life for you. So you can comfortably know that you can bid at least 8 life and not lose
any
life from
life.
that. Yeah. And maybe you're already up at 50, 60 life or whatever because of Shieldred. Now you can start betting 15, 16. Someone may go, if someone like beats you and that would put them at like 1 life if they did it, would you just let them draw those cards?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because then you just do something else, sign in blood, whatever. Yeah, kill them.
It's I think it's very cool and it's great, especially if you have a very greedy play group.
Yes, yeah, the greedier the better. Shieldred definitely punishes the heck out of that. So let's talk about some synergies as well. There are a couple of infinite things going on here. Lich's Mastery is a legendary enchantment, 3 black. It says hexproof, you can't lose the game. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. So all you need to do is draw a single card. You'll gain 2 life. You can draw 2 cards, gain 4 life, draw, right? And you'll be able to draw your entire deck. But it says whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lost, exile a permanent you control or a card from your hand or graveyard. And if Lich's Mastery leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So interestingly enough, if you have 50 cards in your hand, someone hits you for 5, you're okay discarding 5 cards.
Yeah, you're totally fine.
And then you exile the cards from your graveyard later on, right? So you have that double up there. So you're not actually worried about that part of it.
And reminder, it says you can't lose the game on it. So you don't lose from decking yourself.
Yeah, but you can just instantly draw out. And you have to, by the way, because it's whenever you gain life, you draw that many cards. So draw a single card, your whole deck is going to be in your hand.
Pretty good.
Villainous Broker of Blood, whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. So this is pretty good too. Even if someone hits you, you're drawing cards, and you're going to stay life positive so much more than everyone else, because every time someone tries to do something with you with Villainous out, you're just going to gain more life.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
You lose some life, you gain it back. Twice as bad.
Greed now just says black, draw a card.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Paying 2 life, I don't do that.
Yep.
There's definitely, you want ways to slow your opponents down a little bit, because you are going to be giving them a lot of gas because you're giving them so many cards. So I think you want ways to just put the boot on them a little bit.
Yeah.
Cards like Nat Miser, it says each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 1. Locust Miser says each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 2.
Ooh.
And you start to chip away at the cards that they actually have access to. So they're going to be sending a lot of those cards to the bin at the end of their turn.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to control people's hands, even just like small, like I like the hand size limiters a lot. That's a really fun way, because if you have both those out, everyone's hand size is 4.
Yeah.
And then I think you have to protect Shieldreds, because if I was playing against Shieldred, I would try to remove it or tell someone else to. But you've got Malakir Rebirth, Supernatural Stamina, Feign Death, Undying Malice. These are all instants in black that allow a creature to come back to the battlefield after it's been put into the graveyard or it dies. So you just buy it back. They spend a big thing to remove it, or one of their best removal spells. You get it back, your Shieldred thing keeps going, and people are now forced to use more of their resources to try and kill it. Pretty tough.
If I was running all of these 4 cards, I would also run like a High Market or like a free little Heidi sack outlet, just in case somebody tries to swords it or path it or bounce it or something like that. You could get that effect of that protection.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Rosnacht, Heir of Roga. It's a Murloc now. This is a Crone Crusader in the command zone.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's a red mana for a 0/1 legendary Kobold Warrior with Battlecry. So whenever it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And it says whenever you cast a spell that targets Rosnacht, Heir of Roga, create a 0/1 red Kobold creature token named Kobolds of Care Keep. So every time a Crone Crusader makes you a 1/1 red soldier creature token with haste, you just get little kobolds here.
Yeah.
But then when they all attack, they all get +1/+0.
Because of the battle cry, yeah.
The battle cry goes like, rah, rah, rah. Okay. So what are we doing with this deck?
Worth noting for battle cry, it doesn't buff Rosnacht.
What?
Yep, each other attacking creature.
Well, that's
a sneaky moment in battle cry.
Rosnacht's like, go! I will attack. Please don't block me.
Yeah. So this looks a lot like it's going to be another Spellslinger deck.
Yeah, but this time mono red specifically.
Yes. So you're going to be running a lot of the spells that we talked about earlier. These 1-drop instants or sorceries that target a single creature and draw a card. So Crimson Wisps, Expedite, Fists of Flame that we mentioned before. Renegade Tactics is another good one. Target creature can't block this turn, draw a card.
Very good. And then Kruk the Thumbless here seems just so good, because again,
pretty good. Doesn't have to resolve.
Yeah, you can target the creature, you're going to get that 1/1, and then you can bounce it to your hand, or it happens twice, you draw 2 cards. Seems very good.
Yeah.
You have a lot of payoffs in red here. So Gutter Snipe, obviously, Young Pyromancer, Firebrand Archer. These are all just ways to get a little bit of damage or another creature or hurt each opponent off of all your spells.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to benefit from this. Again, this is a Zada Hedron Grinder deck. It's a Mirror Wing Dragon deck. And it's worth noting that Rosnacht doesn't have to be targeted by an instant or sorcery. That's just sort of what their most support is.
Oh, okay.
So you have the most support for instants and sorceries in red, but there are other ways to target a single creature, including Mutate.
Oh, that's right.
Mono red Mutate.
Rosnacht is not a human, so you can definitely mutate the crap out of that little kobold.
Pretty cool. There's only 3 cards that'll mutate it, but you can go nuts. Porcuparrot. Everquill Phoenix is my favorite of the group. It says whenever this creature mutates, mutates, create a red artifact creature token with feather. It says 1, sacrifice feather, return target phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So you have a way to get the phoenix back if Rosenach dies, but most importantly, it gives Rosenach flying.
Yeah, because he kind of needs, I was going to say, a 0-1 attacking with Battlecry does not seem great. It feels like, no, I want to cast Fist of Flame on a Mirrorwing Dragon instead, but Everquill Phoenix lets him get out there.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
How does Porcu-Parrot not have flying? Parrots can't fly.
No, it's a ground parrot. It's more Porcu.
This feels like an uncard because it's, remember how they would jam in two
you smashed them together.
Yeah.
It's the back half is a porcupine.
Porcu-Parrot.
So it lost out on the wing battle, which is not so good.
Not so good. Yeah, if I had to choose what side of a bird to not have, I would include the part with wings.
The wings is the cool part, you think, not just the parrot head.
That seems pretty important.
Another cool way that you can target creatures is with auras.
That's right. Yeah, enchantment auras come down and target a creature before they attach onto them. Red has a lot.
Yeah, a lot of them that cantrip that draw a card when they enter the battlefield.
Yep.
So Rune of Speed will do that.
Yeah, we talked about this on the Stang set review.
Yeah, Sticky Fingers does a similar thing. Some super cool ones is Crown of Flames.
What does this do?
So this is a red enchantment aura that has 2 activated abilities. Red enchanted creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so fire breathing.
Very nice.
And then it also says red return Crown of Flames to its owner's hand.
Hey, that's great.
So,
replay it.
You give her a crown, you take it away. You give her a crown, you take it away. You give her a crown, and every time she gets a crown,
she makes a little kobold.
she gets a little boy.
She's like, I'm going to have a little boy now that I'm queen. I'm not queen anymore, but if I was, I'd have another little kobold.
Boy!
Yeah, although the original kobolds of Kara keep their 3 children kobolds sitting there, so maybe she's having triplets every time.
Whoa!
Yeah, whoa, they're 1/1 still. Each of them are 0.3 power. I like that. And again, fire breathing seems pretty good on the 0/1 because you need people to not want to block it. Otherwise,
For sure.
yeah.
You do need to get through. There isn't a lot of evasion that you can get on red auras, but you can do some things. Shiny Impetus makes it a little bit bigger and gets you a treasure token.
Yeah, I like that.
When you attack. I really like Volcanic Strength because it gives her +2/+2 and Mountain Walk.
Oh, Mountain Walk.
That's evasion.
Important, yeah. Pretty good here. Bravado, a card I've never seen.
It's really good.
1 and a red for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control. This is perfect.
All her sons.
So big now.
Yeah, big mama.
And she's going to instantly get +1/+1 for just casting this on her as well. And at that point, maybe you've got 4 or 5. Who knows?
Yeah.
You're going crazy.
Betrothed in Fire is another cool one. This is another aura for 1 and a red. It says sacrifice an untapped creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So you can sack your kobolds to buff up Mama.
Nice.
Or sacrifice enchanted creature. All creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn.
Oh, this makes blocking really hard.
Right. So Mom can sacrifice herself and buff up all of her little sons.
Wow, that's actually so cute.
Yeah, I think it's really cool in this deck.
Yeah.
And it makes a guy when it comes in.
Yeah, it's a little flavor win right there.
There's not a lot of aura support in red. So
No.
it's tricky to build, but Storm Herald does help.
Yeah, so when the Storm Herald enters the battlefield, it grabs any number of aura cards from your graveyard and it goes to the battlefield attached to any creatures you control. So it doesn't need to be the Storm Herald itself. So you can throw it back onto Mom or whatever. And then you exile those auras at the beginning of your next end step. And if they would go anywhere else, they get exiled instead. But it's a great way to reuse everything. And sometimes you just need that one big swing.
Yeah.
And I really like Betrothed by Fire because you swing with everything to go, what do I block? Just the Mom and a bunch of other things, or block everything, and then you just boom, zooms out of power.
Yeah.
Bunch of power. Okay, and then I guess if you want to get some payoffs from making a bunch of kobolds, there are ways to do that. So Mana Echoes will give you mana when you get a bunch of kobolds in. That's going to give you whatever you need to do. Maybe you cast a fireball or whatever. And then Shared Animosity is really good. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it.
Pretty cool.
That's a win condition right there.
Yeah. If you have a bunch of kobolds, Shared Animosity turns into a real board. You could also just go classic route and go Impact Tremors style stuff. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage. Perforos will deal 2 damage whenever a kobold enters and has the benefit of having a pump ability on him. It's for 2 and a red. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. You
actually
forget about
relevant.
those, but actually very good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and then Witty Roast Smasher does the same thing. Goblin Bombardment just turns them all into throw it at something for 1 damage. Cascade of Calamity, probably really good here.
Cavalcade of
Calamity, sorry.
Yeah.
1 in a red, whenever a creature you control with power 1 or less attacks, Cavalcade of Calamity deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking.
Yeah.
So if you have a plus ability like Perforos, you swing with everything, and then the Cavalcade triggers will happen. Make sure that they go through, and then you pump everything up before you combat damage.
Raid Bombardment does the same thing.
Yep. Very good. So I guess that's kind of how you win the game.
Yeah. There's a number of ways to get benefit off of attacking with a lot of red guys. Torbrand does a good job.
Yep, Torbrand's great.
And I really like Ogre Battle Driver as well. For 2 red, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end of turn.
Yep.
So you can just send these little 2/1s just sort of zooming into...
+2/+0, they're 3/1s.
3/1s.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, they just start flying out every time you target.
They think they're flying, but they're really just
running
really fast on the ground.
Yeah, little legs.
In their heads, they're like, "I'm flying, mommy. I'm doing it." Hellrider, also a really great finisher. We swing with 10 creatures is going to deal as many damage equal to the number of attacking creatures. So very good there. And then, it's a token deck. Idol of Oblivion, Obelisk of Ur, and Metallic Mimic is great for all the changeling sect that you're gonna name kobolds.
Before we get off of this one, I think Livewire Lash is a very cool include. This is an equipment for 2. It says equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell, this creature deals 2 damage to any target.
Yikes.
So you can put it on Rosnoct, and then every time you target her, you get a kobold and get to shoot a little shock.
Pew! Pew! Zap. Okay. 3 more cards left, but this is the one we're going to spend the most time on. It's Tatyova, Steward of Tides. So green, blue for a 3/3 Merfolk Druid. Land creatures you control have flying, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature token with haste. It's still a land.
Pretty cool.
And it has flying because of the first ability on Tatyova.
Yeah. It's So obviously this deck is going to be loaded with ramp spells. You need to get to 7 lands as fast as possible to make your commander do anything.
Yeah, and by the way, you don't need to cast Tatyova until that turn when you're getting a bunch of lands in the battlefield. Yeah. I think playing Tatyova early is probably a mistake in this deck.
It's sort of different than the other Tatyova deck. She's going to be more of a finisher.
Yeah.
But there's some cool ramp spells that I wanted to mention because they have sort of added synergy. Harvest Season, I think, is really good in this deck. It says search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the number of tapped creatures you control, and put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So if you're attacking with your land creatures and they're tapped, you can cast this and basically get a land onto the battlefield for each creature that you already have.
Right, and they're all, your lands and your creatures are going to count towards Harvest Season.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty neat. Hunting Wilds is also good. This is a 3 and a green for a sorcery. It has kicker 3 and a green, so it can be expensive, but it's search your library for up to 2 forest cards, put them into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So explosive vegetation, basically. Good. And then if the spell was kicked, untap all forests put onto the battlefield this way.
Ooh.
They become 3/3 green creature tokens with haste that are still lands.
Yeah, those are permanently creatures now as well.
Yeah, so there is a rampant growth that also makes creatures into, or lands into creatures.
Yeah. And we'll talk about a couple of these cards later, but there are cards that turn all your lands into creatures. So imagine doing that with Harvest Season. Then you don't even need to worry about trying to get a bunch of lands in to make creatures. You just have them all out there. These kinds of decks really like indestructible lands.
Yeah.
Because they cannot die. And, if a board wipe happens or someone tries a removal spell on your stuff on your turn when they're still creatures, you're going to lose a land and a creature, so that feels really bad. Yeah. But not if it's Darksteel Citadel or Cascading Cataracts.
Yeah, Tanglepool Bridge.
Oh, yeah, the artifact lands.
You've got some options for indestructible lands in these colors, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, and then we have another mention of Blinkmoth and Inkmoth Nexus here as well. That's just another way. Again, they're already creature lands. They want to be able to swing, but now they're 3/3s on top of it.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't have to wait until you have 7 lands into play if it just gives you a little bit more redundancy there.
Yeah, and presumably you have a lot of cards in your deck that also like having lands become creatures. So Embodiment of Insight is 4 and a red for a Vigilance 4/4, and it says land creatures you control have Vigilance. And then it has the same effect where landfall, you can make a creature a 3/3 or something.
Yeah.
So that's nice. So I think you're just really trying to make a lot of stuff land creatures, right? Earth Surge, each land gets +2/+2 as long as it's a creature. Now they're 5/5 flyers.
That is pretty serious. Roaring Earth is great in this deck because it has a landfall ability that whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. But it also has a channel ability that's X green, discard Roaring Earth, put X +1 counters on target land you control. It becomes a 0/0 green spirit creature token with haste. It's still a land.
Oh, I love channel.
Early, it pumps up all of your stuff when lands enter. Late, it can make a big creature.
Mod the Nexus.
Land, which is pretty cool.
Kill them with infect.
Get them.
Get them! And they have no idea until it happens. Nissa, Who Shakes the World, seems like the absolute auto-include for this deck because it does the same thing. It puts counters on lands and then allows your forest to tap for double the mana. So that seems very good. You need a lot of acceleration, I think, in a deck like this to keep up.
And if you can ult it, she makes all your forests indestructible.
Yeah.
So there is there's some more upside there.
Definitely.
Something that is a very neat interaction in this deck, I think, is Eudora Grave Gardener.
Oh, interesting.
So Eudora is from Strixhaven, I believe. It's 4 and a green for a Treefolk Druid, 5/5. It says, whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may return it to the battlefield face down under its owner's control. It's a forest land.
Oh, so your lands become creatures and they die, but they don't go away.
They come back as a land. Which gets affected by... would trigger Tatiova and become a creature once again.
And gets affected by Nissa, Who Shakes the World as well, because it's a forest. That's actually really sweet.
Eudora is very cool in this deck.
Yeah, and people are going to be... Once people are sort of savvy to what's going on, they will begin to remove your lands thinking that it's going to set you back further, but with stuff like Eudora out, that really gets negated. I like this deck a lot, actually, so far.
There's some really neat synergies in it.
This next category I liked, which is, you just called it, The Ents Are Going to War. So any Lord of the Rings fans out there, a great quote.
So this is one quick way to turn all of your lands into creatures, because they don't have to be made a creature with Tatiova to gain flying.
There's a bunch of ways of doing this.
Kamal's Will is a great one. It's a removal spell and turns all of your lands into 1/1 elemental creature tokens with vigilance, indestructible, and haste.
Yeah, that seems really important, the indestructible part, because if you're swinging with your entire board here, then you want them to not die.
A little bit of protection here would be helpful. Thank you.
A little bit of protection.
I really like... So I think this deck will likely have snow lands.
Yeah.
I think snow basics, because Avalanche Caller is quite good in this deck, as is Faceless Haven.
Right.
Because Faceless Haven will be 4/3 flyer, which is a formidable attacker.
Yep. But it takes snowlands to activate that ability, and Avalanche Caller cares about snowlands. So in case you missed Kaldheim Limited, Avalanche Caller is a human wizard for 1 and a blue, and it has an activated ability that says target snowland you control becomes a 4/4 elemental creature token with hexproof and haste until end of turn. It's still a land. So it makes a hexproof 4/4 body, and Tatiova gives it flying. Yeah, let's go.
And it's only until end of turn, so you can kind of protect your lands from a board wipe, which I think is pretty good.
Yep, I think Sylvan Awakening also gives your lands indestructible as well, and you just want to crack in, and that's the way you're going to do it is by making the lands hard to deal with. I also really like Ashaya because it's going to trigger again when creatures come in because they count as forests when they enter the battlefield, non-token creatures.
That's cool.
And so you get the landfall triggers from all the other ones. Life and Limb, 3 and a green, all forests and all saplings are 1/1 green sapling creatures and forest lands in addition to their other types. So you don't want to do this when you're not going to win.
Careful.
Because then the board wipe comes and you're going to feel real bad about it. But it's again another way to get everything into lands instantly. And let's say you have 20 lands out on the battlefield, you pump them, that's going to be a player out of the game.
So what happens if the board wipe does come, Jimmy?
Probably just quit.
Yeah.
No, there's things you can do. So there are, obviously, it's green and blue. There's ways to get cards back, but cards like Slogurk, the Oberslime, 1 green and blue, 3/3 trample. Whenever a land card is put into your graveyard, you put a +1/+1 counter on Slogurk. You can remove 3 +1/+1 counters from Slogurk to bounce it to your hand. And more importantly, when it leaves the battlefield, so it doesn't have to die, it can be flickered by a second ability. Return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand. So that's a great regrow stuff. If you have fetch lands, ways to get extra landfall triggers, Slowgurk will love those lands going to the graveyard, and then returning and getting those cards back in your hand, keep this cycle going.
Yeah, Life from the Loam will get some lands from your graveyard back to your hand, but of course there's Splendid Reclamation.
Oh yeah.
Just return all lands cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So, oopsie, there was a board wipe. Let me bring him back.
And finally, I think this is the most powerful thing you do with the deck, which is this land is my land. And you're basically bouncing stuff. You're in blue. You have Devastation Tide, Flood of Tears, River's Rebuke, and these all say return all non-land permanents either to a target player or to each owner's hands. So your lands are not non-lands, they're lands. And they don't want these spells. They keep them powered this way so that you can't just bounce someone's whole lands, because that feels really bad. You can only play one a turn. But if your land...
Normally your lands aren't hitting people.
Yeah, exactly. Now they are, and you're bouncing everything but those lands. So even after the board wipe, let's say you lose a lot of your cards in the process into your hand, it doesn't matter. You still have a huge board that can swing at people, and this is when I think you really want to crack in with the cards that, Sylvan Awakening and all that stuff that turn it all in.
For sure. I think the cheap ones are going to be the best ones here because you're often going to be double spelling with something like a Sylvan's Awakening.
Right.
So Consuming Tide is very good.
Yeah, for 4 mana, you're basically doing the same thing.
Yeah, and Coastal Breach is only 4 mana as well. If you still have 3 opponents, that is.
Yep, because it is Undaunted. Yeah, Tatiova, pretty fun stuff. I like this deck.
Who knew Tatiova would be good?
Yeah, the value, it's all there. Okay, we have 2 more left here. We're not going to spend too much time on them because they are not that fascinating, but we have a couple of things to say about them. The first one, I just wanted to say it because of the name. That's really it. The card itself is, I think, okay, but it is, if you're following along, what comes after the letter T? It's you. Wink. It's Urg, spawn of Turg. Black, green, star 5. Its power is equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. And at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. And then you can pay black and a green to sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. Not that impressive.
Yeah, he's Gitrog's little brother.
Yeah, he's very good in Gitrog. Probably good in Lord Windgrace. But his name, Urg. Who's Turg?
Turg. We got to meet Turg.
Yeah, Turg is going to be Turg, spawn of...
He's going to be another Golgari frog that cares about lands. I love it so much.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Clearly had a lot of fun with that one.
And then the last card we'll talk about today is Zerium Golden Wind. This is a monocolored legendary card from the Commander Precons. 3 in the white, Griffin. Whenever flying 3/4, whenever Griffin you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 2/2 white Griffin creature token with flying. Can someone say Changeling deck?
Yes.
So pretty good. Anytime a Changeling does combat damage, you make a 2/2 flyer. That's very impressive.
Yep.
I do want to say, though, that there is a lot of cards that work really well with Folk Hero. So this is a new background, but you can play it in your deck, and it's just 1 in the white. Commander creatures you own have, whenever you cast a spell that shares a creature type with this creature, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So in a mono white deck, if you're playing Changelings or whatever, it's a great way to just keep that engine going.
Or if you're playing Griffins. Do it on hard mode.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Changeling decks as it goes. Okay, let's talk about our favorites and our picks for most powerful new commander. Rachel, I think you went first last time, so I'll go first this time.
Yeah.
My vote for most powerful new commander is probably Shieldred the Apocalypse.
Gotta be. It's a good Magic card.
It is very good. I think the -2 on the drawing cards, it's just brutal. I've seen Cataract Parasite in my nightmares recently. And turns out, when you're trying to do the thing that wins you the game, which is draw cards and play them, you don't want to get punished actively for it. And this is one that you can't control. No matter what, when you draw a card, you're going to take that 2 life. And then when you draw more, it's going to hurt even more. So I think it's great at controlling the deck and doing what you need to do.
Yeah, it's a very powerful effect. I also went with a black commander. I picked Braids, Arisen Nightmare.
Yeah.
I think you can put your opponents in very sticky situations, similar to Shieldred, and I was very close between the 2 of them, where you're just forcing them to take 2 damage or, sack something that they really don't want to sacrifice. It's also just so cheap. 3 mana is so inexpensive.
When you said Dark Ritual Braids turn 1, I was like, oh man, that could get you...
Draw 3 cards?
Yeah, if you have something to sacrifice. But yeah, totally. Yeah. That's great.
Pretty good.
All right. As far as favorite new commander, mine's got to be Urg, Spawn of Turg,
Gotta
everybody.
be.
Nah, it's probably Rusnacht, Heir of Roga. built a Jeskai deck that was all about Zada and Mirrorwing Dragon and doing that thing. So seeing it on a monocolored commander is actually kind of comforting because I don't need to worry about a 3-color mana base. I know exactly what I need to build around, and I can get the same, I think, effect without having to do the fancy Fel Stinger version of it.
Yeah.
I like that. How about you?
Why have even a 1-color mana base when you can have a colorless mana base?
Wowie zowie.
I'm really into the Peregrine Dynamo out of these commanders. I think you can build like a really cute deck that you've just never seen before.
Totally.
And I like that they've made another colorless commander because I think it's a neat challenge that people really love to take advantage of, and there's not a ton of options right now.
Yeah.
So I think you can make something really cool with Peregrine Dynamo.
Yeah, I like that. And you better be playing the Hope of Girper in there as well. It's like it's the colorless version of Ranger Captain of Eos.
Yeah, yes.
There you go.
You have to deal combat damage.
You can double that up too?
Sure can.
Yeah, all right. Peregrine Dynamo, let's go. All right, to the listeners, everybody, what do you think of these commanders? Are there any uncommons that stand out to you as particularly powerful? Did we miss talking about a card? I think I actually do think we did miss a card that we should talk about, which is with Danitha.
Yeah.
You should definitely play Krark Clan Ironworks in there.
Yes.
Because you can sacrifice the equipment that are out there into your graveyard to cast Danitha, and when you cast Danitha,
bring her right
you
back.
get a rack.
That seems pretty good.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. But there may have been other cards that we missed, so let us know in the comments, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. And of course, if you want to pick up some of these cards, say hello to my little friend. It's our sponsor. The Jam Viral Marketplace has you covered for singles, sealed product, and more. You're shopping from local game stores around the country. There's nothing really much else to be said about that. You're supporting a real business, and you're buying cards that you need because you're a Magic player. That's what we do. We need to get cards to play the game. Channelfireball.com/command or enter promo code command at checkout. When you get those cards, put them into an Ultra Pro sleeve and check out ultrapro.com/command. Check out their shop, check out their store, buy some Ultra Pro product from a store around you. It's really cool. I'm so glad you guys do it because we need it, and affiliate links help make these shows survive. Okay, cool. Clean up step. Big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone. We got Damon Lenz, Arthur Meadowcroft, Ashlyn Rose, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Craig Blanchett, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Josh Lee Kwai, Patrick Nan, Jordan Pridgeon, Sam Waller, Grav Galati, Jamie Block, Mitch Trafford, Evan Limburger, and big shout out to Truck Ty, who helps out with a lot of the cards, as well as creating these documents in front of us that allow us to read all the cards while we do the episodes each time. You rock. And big thanks to Jeffrey Palmer, does the living card animations often behind us on set, and they start our show at our YouTube channel. And of course, Rachel Reeks, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rachel Reeks. I also have a commander podcast, It's a comedy commander show with my co-host Dan Sheehan called The Commander Sphere.
Yeah, very cool.
If you're into D&D, I also play live D&D every Monday with a group of comedians called Better Than Heroes. It's a very silly time. We play Spelljammer.
Oh, Spelljammer. Nice.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, everyone. Well, make sure you check out Rachel Reeks and all that stuff. And of course, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that good stuff. We hope to see you very soon on another episode of the Command Zone podcast where it may or may not be a set review. Goodbye, everybody. Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter at JFWong and at Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.